вставши на коліно, своє полкове знамено, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою, всі скитання, воно вібрало у собі, всю кров
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великой страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні. У нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, та вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 343 of the news. I almost forgot what day it was, but it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be reporting on the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. But before we do, I have to, of course, recap our progress so far on the Sunday night fundraiser. I went back and checked on it, and it was able to raise $22,364 total. We've now gone, just before the stream tonight, and also, oh my God, Spencer!
Dang.
Good
Thanks,
Lord,
Spencer.
thank you, Spencer. But speaking of Spencer, Spencer was the absolute legend of that night. I think he put in like $7,000 on his own. So give a huge round of applause to Spencer for not only helping that fundraiser to get to around $22,364, but for also supporting tonight's stream, because that helps us to keep things running behind the scenes so that way we can keep doing everything involved with this channel. But we did the math, we added everything up, and we actually got the exact count. Right now, we are at $750,982 raised over all of our fundraisers from the beginning of the war to now. So actually, we just passed with that fundraiser $750,000, and we're now on our way through the final. And we're finally on our way in this last $250,000 to $1 million raised in support of Ukraine from start to finish. And I gotta say, absolutely impressive. I have to thank every single person who helped out with that Sunday fundraiser. We didn't even expect that it would reach the goal. We thought it may be one of the first fundraisers that never reached its goal, but as soon as the stream started, we got up to 5,000 within 30 minutes, 10,000 within 40 minutes, and all the way up to 20,000 in a matter of, I think, an hour. So it was absolutely unbelievable, and I've got to thank you all once again, because the Lee Spring Army does not play around in any single regard, and without y'all, this stream isn't possible, the fundraisers aren't possible, none of this is possible, and y'all are an incredible community for those reasons. And so with that, let's get right into the news tonight, because we have some interesting things to cover, specifically the Russian losses and what's been going on in the Bakhmut area. But before we get to that, I have to bring y'all, of course, into Russia, because Russia has had a really interesting statement today that can also be tied into the war in general. And y'all may see it in the title. The Russian airborne forces have practically been destroyed. And this shocking announcement was made today on a Russian state TV program that nearly 50 to 60% of Russian airborne forces had already been destroyed by mid-September of last year. So let me show y'all this clip, because it is absolutely insane. Here we go. Translation is at the bottom of the screen. I'm not going to talk through it because it's fairly
Верно.
self-explanatory.
Многие говорят про то, что воздушно-десантные войска на фронте не видно. К сожалению, это объективная реальность. К началу, получается, мобилизация у нас примерно воздушно-десантные войска лишились 40-50% штатного состава.
All right, now to unpack what he's saying right here, the first mobilization began around late September of last year. He's saying that by that point, the Russian airborne forces had lost nearly half of their force. Half of it. So you're looking at the entirety of the VDV and any other airborne force. I think they all fall under the flag of the VDV. Across the entirety of the Russian Federation, according to the information that this state TV program has received, half of those soldiers had already been killed or wounded by September. And at this point, I believe that we're about 6 months away from September, if I'm correct, Matthew.
Yes, I believe so.
So that means that if the Russian airborne forces had continued to stay on the line past September and all the way up until their forces had been completely depleted, we should expect to hear that the Russian airborne forces do not exist at this point. And they're going off the number that they got in mid-September.
Сейчас частей получается, ну как сказать, строевых штатным вооружением, которые вот старые проверенные десантники, их осталось...
So this man on Russian state TV right here just admitted that there are no airborne forces on the front lines anymore because all of them have nearly been blown away. And remember, there are two different kinds of units in the Russian military that get an excessively high, well, relative to Russia, amount of training compared to their normal conscript forces. That is the VDV and the Spetsnaz. And we've already heard that the VDV has practically been wiped out. This Russian state news broadcast with their very conservative reports on Russian casualties, has already confirmed that information. So they may as well have been stricken off the roster and the VDV become a thing of history. We also know that the Wagner Group has taken such a high amount of casualties, which is, I guess you could say, the most feared mercenary force that the Russians have ever brought to the field. We already know that they've taken so many casualties that they've now been withdrawn from the Bakhmut area, the front line in the Battle of Bakhmut, and they're now only operating in the Blagodatne Soledar part of the front line, which is about a mile long, meaning that their forces have been so depleted, they only have about 1 miles wide operational strength, and that's it. They can't extend beyond that anymore due to the losses they have. And then the real question now is the only unit of the three that were the most feared at the start of this war is the Spetsnaz. We don't really know if the Spetsnaz has been wiped out or not. We know that the Spetsnaz has been involved heavily in this current war and that they have taken very high casualties, and sometimes we've been able to confirm that some of their companies and units have been wiped out, but we've never been able to get that final proof and affirmation that the Spetsnaz has been completely depleted and wiped out like the Wagner unit or the VDV has. But one thing's for certain, there will be no more Blue Berets in Ukraine. They're all dead or wounded, and this has been confirmed by Russian state TV. And let me remind y'all something. VDV uniform. I've got to show y'all the uniform of the VDV again. Alright, so when I say Blue Beret, I'm talking about this right here. That is a Blue Beret of the VDV. They're all dead. So you won't see the Blue Berets anymore. And also that stupid striped shirt that they always wear under the uniform. You won't be seeing any of this stupidity anymore on the front lines. And this was, once again to reiterate, I guess you could say this would be America's equivalent of, hell, I guess the Rangers. They've been wiped out completely. So hey, good on them. I'm not saying, though, that the Rangers and the VDV had the same level of training. That is a massive, I guess you could say that would be a massive understatement for the Ranger force here in the United States. They are way overtrained compared to the VDV. The Rangers may as well be in a whole entire different plane of existence compared to these guys, but they're gone completely. So, with that, we're now moving on into the next bit of news in Moscow, where we can see that we've been able to take a look at the manual that's been given out to some Russian soldiers. Apparently, there's been some kind of a digital copy made of this that's in English. So we're going to take a look at this and see what it says. So, section 4 of this manual, and I guess this is kind of the manual that you give soldiers, say, who are they fighting? And this says, who are the Ukrainians? Not long ago, 96.7%, a very exact number, of Ukrainians were Russians. Since when? But for 30 years of independence, they were deprived of normal education, culture, native language, and turned into feral Russophobes. What? So they're saying in this manual that Ukrainians are illiterate, cultureless, and they're savages. That's pretty much what they're saying. This is the stupidest thing I've ever read, because I think, if we go to the literacy rates, I think technically the Ukrainians are more literate than the Russians. Ukrainian literacy rate. Let's see. Adult literacy rate for Ukraine was 100%. Literacy rate for Russia.
It was 100% in Ukraine?
Yes, it was 100%. 99.
Wow, that's incredible.
99.69% of the Russian population is literate. And so while they're at such a high level of literacy that really this is splitting hairs, technically, according to the internet, the Ukrainians beat out the Russians by just a little bit. In fact, it's only increased 0.6% over 20 years, because in 2001 they were already at 99.4%. So technically they do beat out the Russians in literacy rate. So I don't really understand why in the manual they would say that they have been deprived of normal education, because obviously they can read. They still have some.
Crazy to think that the literacy rates are that high in both places. That seems almost unbelievable.
What is the literacy rate in the United States? Literacy rate in the U.S. 79%.
That 100% figure cannot be accurate. I'd have to call BS on that one.
If I'm going to say this, the United States is definitely not the, I guess you could say, hallmark of public education around the world. But if we can only get 79%, I'm going to have to agree with Matthew here. 99.6% and 100% do sound really far-fetched. but I don't really know. Let's 1 second. I'm gonna type in Finland because Finland supposedly has one of the highest 100%. There it is. So according to the internet, they say that 100% of the Finnish population is literate, and they have one of the best public education systems in the world. So that would be believable, but the Russians having a 99.6, I don't know. So
they don't know to get out of the way of bombs, but they know how to read.
Yeah,
how's that work?
Kind of finding all of that highly unlikely, but they still have something left of the Russians, according to the manual. Matthew, they like us. Wow, really? I guess that's why the war has lasted for 12 months, because they love y'all so much. They just want the Russian army around for a whole year. We're brought up on the exploits of their grandfathers who defeated fascism. They are just as brave fighters, steadfast in defense, daring in the offensive. Well, at least they're giving the Ukrainians a decent amount of credit here in this manual that they're really good fighters. I mean, like, hell, you don't hold back supposedly the second greatest army in Ukraine by being the third best in Ukraine. You've got to be the first best. Someday, after denazification, they will be Russians again. That sounds really ominous, knowing what will go behind that statement. But for now, they are the enemy, cruel and insidious. Why in the world is this manual so straightforward? This is like, the literacy rate must be like 99.64%, Matthew, because everyone in Russia has like a 3rd or 4th grade reading level, with it being this simple.
Yeah, I guess, what are they counting as literate? Would be the next question.
Yeah, that's a good question, because the literacy definition may be different in Russia and maybe in Ukraine, and that's how they get like 99 and 100% literacy, because our definition of literacy is a certain level of proficiency. But anyways, that means we have to beat them until they pull their hands up without relaxing until we win. What the hell does that last line mean? That just sounds like sexual assault. That doesn't even sound like anything related to the military. But anyways, we're going to be moving on from this. It's fairly straightforward. This is a section from a Russian military manual explaining why they're fighting the Ukrainians and explaining who they are in literally the shortest of terms. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip of news in Russia and now on to a channel that we have very high praise for. 1420. 1420 is an incredible channel that interviews Russian citizens inside of Russia and asks them simple questions. The last time they were on our channel, we got to see a Russian Karen and a Darren in full action. This time, I've watched a little bit of this clip, but I'm going into this with about 2 minutes of it watched at the start. It's about 10 minutes long, so we're going to get a really deep insight on what the Russians are thinking and what they're doing. And so with that, let's take a look.
Вы помните, почему умирают люди в Украине?
Ну, из-за войны.
Но в чем смысл войны тогда вот?
Смысл в том, что сейчас решается судьба планеты.
Why for the next 100 years? Like, why is it exactly 100 years? So in the year 2122 or 2123, the world will be just completely different beyond that point. Whatever's decided here will only matter 100 years into the future. That does not make any sense.
На ближайшие 100 лет.
Я не то что помню. У меня это понятие в крови, что русский солдат всегда сражается за право и за свободу, и за свою родину. Это мне этот вопрос даже странный. Следующий.
Сражается за правду. А какая сейчас правда?
Какая правда? А то, что мы боремся с фашизмом, с теми, кого не добили в 45-м году.
Вы имеете в виду украинский режим, да, сейчас?
Да, украинский режим, который представляет не только угрозу нашей безопасности, но и вообще для всего мира.
Чего? Ну, потому что президент у них такой. Зеленский, козел, еврей.
We got young Adolf here in Russia. You know, he's got to point out Zelensky. You know, the whole reason the sword's being fought is because Zelensky is a Jew. This man must be a aspiring reader of the brand new book issued in Russia on the orders of Putin called Mein Kampf or something, because he sounds like he's reiterating a lot of the speaking points in that one.
А почему? Что не так?
Ну то, что он гребет под себя, а людей за людей, народ за людей не считает.
Takes everything for himself.
В жадности.
Couldn't the same argument be made for Putin that he's greedy for wanting to invade and annex Ukraine or install a puppet government? Why not just let people do what they want?
Фашисты?
американцев в первую очередь.
Ah, here we go. It's the typical American hate.
Два самых главных зла в мире уже давно. Это Британия, а конкретнее Англия, и Соединенные Штаты. Вот от них все беды в мире творят.
Ну, как говорится, добра без зла не существует. Но я думаю, что Россия — это симбиоз добра и зла, а Украина — это зло. Ну, поскольку Россия считает братским
When the hell
народом
has any Russian, because Russians always spew this line that Russia is a brotherly nation and we love Ukraine, but then at the same token, the next sentence they'll say something like they're subhuman people and they're lesser than Russians. It's like this is not a normal brotherly love. This is like that abusive kind of brotherly love where your brother doesn't really love you, but you're like connected by blood and they want to kill you. That's like that kind of connection. Why in the world do Russians always spin their words like this?
А Украина не считает. И я изучал эту тему, и мне кажется, я сначала был за Украину. Время прошло, я начал пазлы складывать и понял, что в России намного добрее люди, чем в Украине. Там зомбированность добрых граждан, к сожалению, их направляет не в то русло. И они страдают от этого. У них есть выбор между жизнью.
What this guy is really saying is that they have a choice in between slavery or war, and they're choosing to die on their feet instead of die on their knees, is pretty much what this guy is saying. And so for that reason, they're terrible people for not just rolling over and surrendering.
Войной. Но они выбирают войну. Вы помните, почему умирают люди сейчас в Украине?
Потому что нужно защитить.
What the hell is up in Russia with everyone wearing their pet dog?
СВО как бы не получилось.
Люди на Украине за то, чтобы мы там навели порядок.
А в чем проявляется это?
Порядок в чем? Ломаем их всех под себя, делаем то, что нам надо.
He doesn't even explain why it's right.
Какие у нас цели? Что нам нужно?
Убрать врага. Враг — те, кто там сегодня командует. Кто командует Украиной?
А кто командует?
Я думаю, что американцы.
А для чего им это?
Как для чего? Ну, колония очередная. Первый раз, что ли? Это уже было много раз.
Они умирают за американские интересы.
А какие интересы?
Ресурсы. Это, во-первых. Во-вторых, причем ресурсы не только Украины.
Okay, on this one, I'm not going to say he's completely wrong, but at the same time, they are invading Ukraine. Aren't they kind of fighting and, dying because Ukraine's trying to defend their sovereignty and the Russians are trying to take it from them? There is a little bit of American strategic interests involved in this whole thing, but it's like, first and foremost, the Ukrainians are fighting for their own survival. It's just a coincidence that the United States, they're trying to align themselves with the United States, and the United States has somewhat of a strategic interest there. So it's like, that's kind of dumb to say the Ukrainians are fighting and dying, and the Russians are fighting and dying as well because of the United States. It's more like everyone's fighting and dying because the Russians invaded them, and if they hadn't, this wouldn't be happening.
Они используют Украину как дубину против России.
То есть Россия сражается с американцами?
Ну, скажем так, с блоком целым стран, которые хотят расчленить Россию и, соответственно, заполучить ее ресурсы.
А зачем им это? Только ресурсы получить?
А что еще?
Самый главный корень проблемы — это Запад. Украина — это разменочная монета, у которой Зеленский не просто так он там стоит, да, человек, который занимался...
And this is another thing that you hear a lot from Russians, is that Zelensky is a puppet that was installed by the Americans. I'll tell you this. The United States, over the course of history, has installed, in the Cold War, puppets in other countries. But usually we pick people that are somewhat involved in the political or the military process of a nation's governance. Either it be a general or a lower person in the political sphere. Usually we do this in Central America or elsewhere. So why the hell would this time we would sit there and go, oh yeah, the aspiring actor, he would make a good president. We're going to have him installed. And on top of that, we didn't even install him. He got elected. So none of that story makes any sense at all off of any precedent. You know, it's absolutely stupid. It's asinine.
Ну, не занимался политикой. Человек, у которого сейчас вообще нету выбора в решениях, это не он принимает эти решения. Это лично мое мнение.
Ну, а вот в целом, то есть, если они под себя Украину, то есть делают колонии, что дальше? Как это будет использоваться?
Нам это будет всегда плохо. Они уже сейчас вывозят землю, они сейчас тут разорили Украину. Украина при советской власти была самой сильной республика. Их было 15, она была самой сильной, самая интеллектуальная и самая промышленная, самая богатая.
Why doesn't this person asking the questions ask these people who started the war? Because it seems like they're under the impression that Russia didn't start it.
Yeah, you know, I'm not really getting it. You know, it's another thing is, and this is a fair argument because here, as a devil's advocate, real quick to say this, one could also say if a Russian was smart, well, the U.S. invaded Iraq and Afghanistan to protect their interests. You know, is that fair? The difference is that we got attacked in a terrorist attack, and then that's what kicked us off into going super turbo mode and invading anyone and everyone we thought was closely, even slightly associated with that. The Russians had nothing going into this war. Nothing had happened inside of Russia. No one was killed. No one was hurt. Everyone was just living their lives in both Ukraine and Russia. And then one day they just decide to invade. So it's not even a similar situation. Like, that is a good question, though, man. I wonder what their response would be. I bet you they would go full hostile mode because there is no good answer to that question, and they would just go and beat the hell out of the cameraman. That's probably why he's not asking it.
Their exact answer would be that America came and started the war. Because wasn't it in the beginning, Russia was trying to spin it, they started the war because Ukraine had interest in joining NATO?
I think so.
Yeah, that's probably what they would say, or they would try to say literally that America came into Ukraine and actually physically tried to start the war. It'll be something crazy like that.
Yeah, true. And we're gonna let this thing keep playing.
Я думаю, что да, Запад он максимально беспощадный. Запад скорее Америка, а Европа тоже страдает так же, как и Украина. Ну.
He calls successful first-rate countries suffering. Has he gone to a normal rural Russian town and taken a look at it versus a rural German or French town? They are totally different. They may as well be in totally different eras of history compared to how they look. This guy's going to say that Western people in Europe suffer because of the United States.
And where'd he get his clothes from, by the way? I bet this is a Western brand of jacket he's wearing, too.
Yeah, you know, that's what I'm thinking the whole time. Everyone in Russia always says they hate America, like the Iranians also say. But then you go to their theme park and they have, like, nothing but American movies and culture and stuff there. And they're wearing nothing but American clothes and designs. Like, it's that hypocrisy stuff. It's like saying, you know, I hate let me think. I hate the exploitative actions of companies in South America as someone drinks coffee and the coffee beans came from like Venezuela or Colombia. You know, it's like that doesn't make any sense, does it? But anyways.
Кроме России, которая никогда не прогиналась и тем самым страдала там от санкций, но если правда на вашей стороне, то какая разница? Но вот в 90
Oh, and we got a little plug right here. Good Lord, Spencer again. Thank you, Spencer.
А в чем это проявляется, вот эта американская сторона?
Ну, как вы думаете, если страна берет кредиты постоянно, на которые нечем отдавать, она становится
What the hell? This guy's explaining Chinese expansionist policies as the United States. Yeah, that's literally what China does right there. That's not what we do.
Другой страны. Ну, в данном случае от Соединенных Штатов.
Но а это разве не право страны там выбирать, с какими странами сотрудничать?
Да, это право каждой страны, но они же за это должны что-то делать.
What loan? What loan?
Они занимались русофобией.
Стараемся военные действия проводить так, чтобы как можно меньше было потерь.
Okay, that's just a straight up lie. Has she like not looked at Ukraine lately and what the Russians are doing there? This one is just delusional.
Населения мирного. Поэтому, видимо, это неправильная тактика. Надо было наступать как Жуков. И флаг бы наш российский уже развивался в Брюсселе давным-давно. А мы все либеральничаем с ними.
Им никто не запрещал жить, торговать со всеми, с нами, с Европой, стремиться в Европу. Но они, кроме этого, они приняли сторону.
Look at this guy. He's doing double speak here. He's in there. No one stopped them from joining the European Union, but they joined the European Union and now they're against us, so they're going to have to pay. That's like saying that, Matthew. That's like me telling you, here's $5. You can or cannot take the $5. If you do take the $5, there will be punishment. Like it's
That's
like
something else right there.
Yeah, it's like saying you have an option, but then in the fine print you don't have an option. It's either you're with Russia or you're going to be killed.
Такую, что быть против нас, а непонятно почему. Так же, как и Прибалтика. Они могут продавать только русофобию, больше ничего.
А почему мы тогда в Прибалтику не проводим спецоперацию тоже?
Ну, знаете, наверное, это было последней каплей в Украину.
Or maybe Russia's scared of NATO since all the Baltic countries are NATO members and they don't want to get their asses stomped in the first opening week of a war and have U.S. forces in St. Petersburg and Moscow within a month. That's probably the reason why they didn't invade the Baltics, but they invaded Ukraine.
Мы говорили про Блицкриг за 4 дня в начале февраля. Ну, когда в феврале, 24 февраля началось.
Я думаю, что вот именно в феврале 4 дней вполне бы хватило, чтобы мы дошли до Киева. Вполне.
Но мы решили поосторожнее, да?
Но решили действовать мягко, думали, что найдем какой-то...
What the hell is she talking about?
Взаимопонимание. С такими людьми так нельзя. Понимаете? Они нас убивают, и их тоже... Они...
Для чего люди умирают? То есть не просто же так.
Я думаю, президенту нужен контроль над Украиной.
Скорее всего, территория, я так думаю, как говорят сейчас.
А зачем?
Ну, чем больше, тем лучше, не знаю, какой-то так.
Но Россия же и так большая.
Ну, не все территории пригодны для жизни, а Украина, я знаю, чернозем, хорошая почва, вот все эти части.
Но вот у нас заявляли, что денацификация, демилитаризация Украины.
Не верю в эти причины совершенно. И не понимаю их смысла.
Вот сейчас с двух сторон, с украинской, с русской, погибли десятки тысяч людей. Должна же быть какая-то причина для этого.
Думаю, имперские амбиции нашего нового государства.
Но есть же какие-то цели объективные?
Да, собственно, удержание власти только.
Ага. Ну вот говорят, вроде бы с 2014 года там Донбасс бомбили.
Ну так наши тоже влезли туда.
Но мы отрицаем, что мы там были, российская армия.
Ну как, мы зашли, взяли Крым. Как бы это наша территория по факту. А фактически это...
See, this guy gets it.
Ну там же референдум был проведен вроде.
Ну, никто его не подтвердил, никто. То есть, если раньше можно было как-то думать о том, что теоретически власть может измениться, то сейчас все настолько ужесточено, что об этом даже и речи не может быть, наверное. И, возможно, война как один из таких, ну, одна из причин может быть и это, консервирование политической системы в том виде, в котором она есть сейчас.
Как считаете, оправдывают вот такие колоссальные цифры потери, цель просто присоединить?
Мне кажется, человеческие жизни никак не оправдывают. То есть это все делается зря. Если есть человеческие жизни, тогда это все дела, которые с этой целью делаются, то это...
Даже чернозем?
Даже чернозем, все равно люди важнее.
Какие здесь оправданные потери? Если не может быть оправданных потерь, то чисто хотелки, так что посылают на смерть верного людей.
Вот говорят, без Путина Россия развалится.
Ну, скорее она воскреснет, начнется новая Россия. Потому что мы отстали от времени. Мы живем в каком-то доисторическом...
Like, this guy really does get it, though.
А в чем это проявляется?
Ну, наша система власти такая авторитарная. Так что тут говорить?
У нас же У нас же вот выборы проводятся там часто.
Ну, выборы это сплошной фикс, здесь никаких выборов нет, все это знают прекрасно. Сплошная подтасовка. Так что, что тут говорить.
Людей жалко, солдат жалко, народ жалко, всех жалко. Мне жалко обе стороны, и ту, и эту.
Так,
и украинскую, и нашу сторону.
Так может тогда не стоило это начинать?
Стоило, потому что дальше будет еще хуже. Если этого не сделают сейчас, то дальше будет хуже.
Слушайте, мы можем только рассуждать
What?
на диване.
That didn't even make any sense. My brain got like twisted
I didn't
two
even know what
different
to say. I
ways.
was just gonna let that one go, but I'm glad you brought it up. He's out there. I feel really sorry for him. We shouldn't have gone over there and started killing him, but we had to because it would have been a lot worse if we hadn't gone over there and killed him. Many more people would have died from, you know, the air or something.
And then he said they should have started the war because it'd been worse if they hadn't.
Yeah, that's
that's not even the right grammar. It's like what, that doesn't even make sense.
I don't know, man. I don't even think that guy knows what's going on. Like, he's just trying to say stuff. I don't know, but that was weird.
Информации располагают власть имущие. В данном случае Путин. Я с ним согласен.
Ну, то
Мы
есть,
можем сидеть в норке и ждать, когда что-то произойдет. А он предпочел не ждать в норке. Все.
считаете, что это было решительное и правильное действие все-таки начать?
Ну, вы знаете, я ему доверяю. Видимо, так.
А можно было избежать вот 24 февраля?
Так ведь старались. Ну сколько лет? Сколько лет предлагали замириться, договориться. Ну, вы помните, сколько наши, ну если говорить вот конкретно про 24-е, но ведь сколько, год до этого просили, давайте договоримся, давайте поделим, давайте разговорим, давайте решим вопросы. Но на нас смотрели свысока, понимаете?
Ну вот а как сам считаете, оправданы жертвы с нашей стороны, там, с украинской? Вообще, стоит это того, чтобы...
Стоит. Надо уничтожить этих. Вот не надо, чтобы вооружение сюда поступало там хохлам со всего земного шара.
Ну вот сейчас поступает там...
Ну вот уничтожать надо на границе прямо. Там с Белоруссией, где там, откуда поступает вооружение, там танки, самолеты. Ну уничтожают же, вон передают беспилотниками и все прочее.
Как, на ваш взгляд, как вам кажется, какая конечная цель у России?
Победить. Уничтожить вот этих всех.
You can tell this guy's really intelligent by the way he holds his mouth open at all times. Oh, look, hey, he sat there and said he hated the Americans. Let's go. Typical Russian stuff. And so with that, that's the end of the clip, but there you have it. That's what most Russians, at least in that one video, think about the whole Ukraine war, why Russians are dying there, and who's to blame. And of course, it always comes back to the good old US of A. We're always to blame for everything that Russia has going on wrong in the world. Corruption within the government, it's because of America. Anything going on with droughts and famine, the Americans have caused it with their super space death ray things that are able to stop rain from falling. The Russian economy is completely failing. That's not because of people skimming the system and absolutely destroying and exploiting the Russian public for just a little bit of their own gain to get some yachts. No. That's because of America's greedy imperialist policies. It's all down to America at the end of the day. Even though they're fighting the Ukrainians and they're getting beat to hell and back by them, somehow it's America's fault because they suck. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from Russia because there's not really much more to unpack here. It's just the same typical kind of stupidity you find each and every day. But one thing we did here that was really interesting is that all the way over in Paris, France, we saw that the French announced that 12 more of the Caesar SPGs will be on their way to Ukraine. I'm a huge fan of the Caesar SPG. I do believe it is one of the best frontline artillery pieces that they have been provided over the course of the entire war, and it's excellent to hear that they're getting another 12 of them. Can't wait to see them. Hopefully the Ukrainian crews will be trained on them quickly and be over there and operating these things and blasting away Russians before we even know it. Moving on over from France and over into Poland, we also heard a really interesting announcement today from the Polish government that they'll now be running a lightning training course on the Leopard 2s that they'll be sending over along with the Germans that should be able to get these Ukrainian tankers ready to operate these vehicles within 5 weeks of the start of training. This is one of the shortest turnarounds for training that we've heard anywhere in the world for any main battle tank. 5 weeks. I believe the typical training time we were looking at was somewhere around 11. And let me pull that up again. Tank training time. Let's see. Tank training time. How long is it? Let's see. So apparently, to become a tank commander here in the United States military, it takes a whole 19 weeks. And it appears that, according to Go Army, it may even be 22 weeks of training, and you need an 87 on your ASVAB. Dang, man. you gotta be smart
score
to be
pretty
a tanker.
high.
Yeah. But moving on from that, we can see that the training times are usually exorbitantly long, and so a 5-week training time is, of course, one of the best that one can expect. This is about as quick as they can do it, and that means that we may see all of the Leopard 2s that are promised to be delivered in under a month's time from now, or just a little bit longer than that. So, fairly cool to hear, and hopefully we'll see some videos of the Leopard 2s in action before long. Moving on out of Poland, and making sure that we have no other international news, we're now going to be moving on into Western Ukraine, where we also saw something incredibly interesting today, is that Foreign Legion members, or International Legion members as they're now being called, are instructing new Ukrainian units on how to fight, and we saw a small clip of that today, and I thought this was fairly interesting. Pretty sick intro.
Let's have a misfire. Do not open the dust cover. You pull the bolt all the way to the rear and you maintain grip of the charging handle. Once it's to the rear and you have a positive control of the charging handle, then you open it up. If you open it up and all it's held on is the dust cover and that goes forward, that round's gonna explode in your face. So you gotta pull it to the rear, open it up. You do everything with your left hand, so you're always holding that to the rear until the round's out.
І ви робите все лівою рукою. Правою ви тримаєте затвор на себе і відпускаєте тільки коли виправили проблему.
Once the malfunction is cleared, you send the bolt home, and then you reload your belt, rack it again and start shooting.
І тоді робите перезарядку і продовжуєте вогонь.
Good?
Зрозуміло?
Good.
We can now see them shooting the PKD. We now see them getting down on that frontline improvised machine gun.
How do you feel?
Man, this edit is wild. Is it just me, or I kind of like the look of that improvised machine gun? It kind of looked kind of cool.
Dude, that thing does look really cool. Also, it looks like they made the back brace of this thing out of like a babushka's rocking chair, or like a chair that was on the front porch, like with the white paint it has and everything. I think it looks really neat, though. I'm not going to lie. And also, this guy's got to have like, I think if you shoot that thing long enough, you will get a dislocated shoulder, because that looks like a solid metal pad. Like, it doesn't look like there's any kind of like rubber bracing or anything on it, and you're just taking the full recoil of, I think it may be around a 50 cal or a little bit larger, like a 14.7, and you're taking the full recoil of that without any kind of padding at all. It's kind of a little interesting. I know I'm just kidding with y'all. It's not going to dislocate his shoulder, but I'm sure he'll be bruised firing this thing without one. Because hell, at 30-06, if you fired enough out of a 1903 with no padding on the buttstock, that will bruise your shoulder after a little while if you shoot like 100 rounds through it or so. Trust me, I've been to the range. But still, it's a pretty neat looking gun, I'm not going to lie. Speaking of which, I did forget one bit of international news, Matthew, that we've got to cover. And this was actually yesterday's news, and that's why I didn't notice it, because it's in blue. But we saw some Bradleys being loaded in Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh.
And look at that. Oh. There they go. They driving into the docks. They loading them on, and then look at that. They're just loading them in, packing them in good and thick. I like to see it. And also, another thing that's really cool, a quick fun fact about Charleston, South Carolina, is that they have an incredibly massive dockyard. You can see some of it here. You can see some of it over here. I mean, like, their dockyard is unbelievably large. And not only that, this is where a lot of, I guess you could say, the vehicle transport ships arrive on the East Coast, is here in Charleston Harbor. So you'll see a lot of those car transport ships, like the one we're seeing in this picture, at Charleston Harbor almost exclusively. There are other harbors that have docks made for these ships, but this one's one of the largest in the Southeast, and that's probably why the loading operation is happening here instead of elsewhere, is because this is one of the few docks in the Southeast where these things could be loaded on. But still, super cool. And also something interesting I was noticing, and maybe some M3 or M2 Bradley operators can tell us how this works, but some of the skirts on the sides of these Bradleys are down and some of them are up. Do these things have a hinge where you can flip those things up and down, or do you have to take them off and then put them back on at a higher level? I would like to know the answer to that question, because I'm wondering if it works like a bus luggage hatch, where you like flip the thing open and then you load the luggage and you just flip it back down and it's like on a pivot.
Yeah, I wonder.
Because I like it with them up. It makes it look like a little scooter. Just as like an aesthetic thing, but there's a reason to put them down. Anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on from the good old US of A, which is doing its part in this war effort, and we're now going to be moving back into Ukraine and on into our location unknowns. And we only had one of them from day 342, and that video clip is actually kind of a little interesting to see, but also kind of unfortunate, because a Foreign Legion unit got hit directly by a mortar shell, and the cameraman, the man who had the camera on him, actually received some wounds from the shrapnel. But we got to see firsthand what the Foreign Legion goes through in battle, and also how, I guess you could say, quick and shocking it is to be hit by a mortar round like that unit was hit by. But before we move on into that clip, we are going to address some polls so that way we can allow everyone to prepare for this clip, because while it's not graphic, it is slightly disturbing in a way. So with that, let's get on into the polls.
All right, so we have 3 polls for our first question segment tonight, and the first one, which is currently running right now, also, please excuse the typo, I'm still eating my foot from that one. The most commonly reason for not sending fighter jets to Ukraine is cited as impracticality. Is this valid? It looks like 47% said no, because Ukraine can learn to adapt to the jets. 16% said somewhat, but not 100%. 8% said unsure and undecided. And 29% said yes, it takes training and resources. Now on this one, I'm going to have to say yes, because it is true that it will take a lot of training and resources to get the pilots trained on the type jets that they're going to receive, if they were going to receive them. But I don't think that is a proper reason to withhold the jets. I think that is sort of like a cop-out reason to withhold them. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm going to be honest, I think that's nothing more than a stall tactic or a quick answer in a way to make up a no, because we've seen that the United States went, the Ukrainians can't operate Bradleys, their bridges can't handle the weight, logistically they can't maintain them or take care of them, they would arrive and they'd fall apart, and then we announced that we're sending 31 of them over, which completely defeats the whole entire argument that was being made before. I think that's the same in this regard. It wouldn't make any sense to me that they're saying that the Ukrainians have no ability to operate or maintain these jets, considering that they're operating MiG-29s, Su-27s, and Su-24s. They're operating about every single class of aircraft that we could ever send. The MiG-29 is fairly comparable, at least in its role, to the F-16. The Su-27 was practically made as a direct competitor to the F-15. The Su-24, if you wanted to compare it to anything in the U.S. arsenal, is like an F-16, but in a air-to-ground variant. Or if you want to say this, although this is a very big stretch, it's kind of like an A-10, although the A-10 goes a lot slower. to me, it doesn't make much sense. And I know that there are, of course, logistical concerns, and that's usually where the concerns lie as to whether the Ukrainians can actually support these vehicles. But that is just a matter of time and training. And the faster you get Ukrainians into the training on how to maintain and operate these vehicles and start that supply chain rolling, you can easily get to having F-16s or any aircraft you want flying in Ukraine. If this was the case, that the Ukrainians could not adopt and operate these aircraft, how come the Polish were able to do it? They were an Eastern European country that was a part of the Soviet bloc all the way up until 1990 or 1991. And yet they're operating F-16s. They're also operating Leopard 2 A6s and M1 Abrams at the exact same time. They're able to take care of the logistical complexities of such a thing like that. Why in the world are we acting like Ukraine cannot? And especially when air support, like the ones we can provide through an F-16 alone, would be massively beneficial to the Ukrainian war effort. So,
and like some are saying in the comments, didn't we hear that some Ukrainian pilots have already been trained on the F-16?
Yes, we've already heard that. That's been confirmed time and time again. F-16s have already had Ukrainian pilots training in them in the U.S., and these pilots are ready to go. We just have to send over the aircraft that are functional and the weaponry as well for them to be able to use them at this point, because from what we've heard, these pilots have already returned to Ukraine and are just sitting there with the knowledge of how to fly an F-16, but with no F-16. So I honestly think it's just excuses, kind of like what we did with the Abrams, and that we should just send it. But with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next poll said the USA followed suit after Germany and has now refused to send fighter jets to Ukraine. What are your thoughts? It looks like 78% said it's just a temporary roadblock, so keep trying to get them sent. 12% said unsure, and 10% said jets are now likely impossible. And on this one, I'm not going to say it's impossible because, like we saw with the tank situation, the positions of these countries change, and they can change rapidly. And sometimes they'll even, I guess, lie would be a strong word. They'll kind of deceive us to think that they're not being sent, when in actuality they'll actually be being sent behind the scenes. But I'm going to go with the 78% on that one. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to go with the 78% as well. It's a short roadblock. It will be overcome very soon. And one thing we have seen is that we always don't get the full picture of what's really going on. Like in the beginning of the war, we were wondering, since there's a lot of surface-to-air missile batteries that the Russians are operating, like the S-300s and S-400s, why not provide the Ukrainians with anti-radiation missiles since they don't have any? And while we were sitting there asking that question on stream, the Ukrainians already had anti-radiation missiles, were already using them, and we never heard about it until months later. So I believe that this is nothing more than a short roadblock, or we may not be getting the full picture due to countries trying to keep some kind of confidentiality about the support, and that is probably in the works, already going over, or this is a temporary roadblock that will be overcome here in the future, much like the Abrams as well. So with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well as well. And do we have another one?
And we have one final one. This one says the U.S. says Russia is violating nuclear arms control treaty by not allowing inspections. What are your thoughts? 58% said Russia is simply being defiant, 8% said unsure, and 33% said Russia is doing something sinister. And I would say that Russia is probably not doing something sinister, and they're simply trying to stick it to NATO by telling us you can't come in and inspect the nukes. So I think that's simply the reason. I don't think there's anything more to it than that. But Enforcer, what do you think?
The honest truth is that NATO said, we would like to inspect the nukes, please. And then some Russian battery commander went, oh, please, none of them work. Tell them they can't come in. And then they called up NATO, you cannot come in. We will not have you looking at the nukes. And so everyone's like, oh my God, something's crazy is going on. And the reality is that probably none of them work. And so they don't want anyone to come around and find out that none of them work. That's probably the reality of the situation. Is once again, this isn't a propaganda side of things. This is a logical side of things. They have almost no military budget. They have such a small one that they're now using tanks from the 1960s and the 1950s because they don't have a lot of modern stuff. Why in the world would we think that they would have more nuclear weapons than the United States with a budget like a 1/12 of our size and be able to maintain and operate them all? That is just out of the question. It's not even happening. So I think honestly the reason is they're trying to stick it to NATO, and there really is no reason behind that that's sinister or anything, because look how incompetent the Russians are here, and imagine that competency being conducted on nuclear weapons, which is actually really concerning, because imagine all of the things that are going wrong in every single nuclear battery around Russia, and we have no idea about it, but they're incompetent as hell. That's actually really scary to think about as to what could be happening in Russia.
Yeah, and also I saw somebody in the comments say, you cannot look at a nuke and tell if it works or not. Well, guess what? If you go and look at a nuke and it has rust on it, that might be a sign that something's not being maintained properly. I'm sure if you walked into Russia's nuke silos, something is probably badly wrong. You can probably tell it by looking at it. That's probably why they don't want people in there as well.
You know, it could another good point is that the launching systems inside of a control room may not be working, or the phone lines may not be working. Anything could not be working. There's a lot of little pieces that are not a part of that missile that are required to work to launch one, and all of those systems may or may not be working. There was actually a documentary put out a while ago here in the United States. I believe it was about 12 or 14 years ago at this point, where a news crew, a press team pretty much, was allowed to look at the nuclear facilities of the United States, and even some of ours were hardly working, and that is a little concerning in its own right. But imagine, and think of this, that falls within the defense budget, and we have a defense budget right now of around $720 billion. The Russians have a defense budget of $55 billion, and almost twice the nuclear weapons, and also a ground army that, on paper, had almost 11,000 tanks, 30,000 armored personnel carriers. We've got a third of everything in that area, and they're having to take $55 billion compared to our $720 billion and spread that out over everything. There's absolutely no way that all of those nuclear weapons are operational. Probably an incredibly small percentage of them actually work. It would be my assumption, just due to the funding involved. But with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. And with that, I think that was our last poll, if I'm correct.
And it was. So it's now time to move on into our super chat questions. And up first, we have that $100 donation from Spencer, who was the donation MVP of Sunday night. And it's good to see you again. Spencer says, let's get a yeah, gents, and take a question from the chat. As always, thanks for the great reporting. I'm sure tonight's news will not disappoint. And I hope it hasn't.
And I hope it hasn't, Spencer. And I thank you so much once again for the massive support. But more importantly, I thank you so much for supporting that fundraiser like you did. I have never seen anything like that in a long time. People, like one person throwing in thousands on a fundraiser on a single night. And I think that says a lot about the character of who you are and how nice of a person you are, that you would be willing to help out save the children, and helping children thousands of miles away from both you and me, in a country that really, at the end of the day, people in the United States could ignore for the short time, and it wouldn't really pertain to us until probably a couple of years in the future. And, and you could just turn a blind eye to it. Many people in the U.S. public have, like, there's not a lot of people that you can ask, around and be like, hey, do you know anything about Ukraine? They'll support them, or they won't, but they'll have no idea of what's really going on. Yet, y'all do, and y'all continue, like you, Spencer, to keep supporting these fundraisers and helping these people out. And I just got to say, Matthew and me are completely blown away, especially with how last Sunday fundraiser went and how much you helped out, Spencer, because we didn't expect that at all. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Spencer. I hope you enjoyed me doting on you. And also, I hope that tonight's news is not disappointing. And so with that, let's get a question from the live chat, courtesy of our legend. Let's see, I believe he is the protector guardian of the new generation, Spencer.
Dang, and that's a hell of a title, by the way. I couldn't remember that one. But anyways, the question sponsored by Spencer is going to go to Anonymous, who says, why can't the U.S. fly those tanks over instead of shipping them?
The U.S. could fly the tanks over. However, that would probably be very expensive and would only cut out a small amount of time transporting them, and we still have to train the crews on the tanks. And so while we could get the tanks over there in an incredibly short amount of time, it would cost a whole lot of money, and it wouldn't even matter because there wouldn't even be any trained crews to receive them as soon as they arrive. And so that's probably the reason why we're not doing that. And so with that, I hope that it answers the question fairly well. Of course, we don't have an answer from the Department of Defense to answer that with, but I'm just working off of a little bit of logic, trying to work a logic puzzle here. And so hopefully that makes sense and that's the reason. But I hope I answered that question fairly well. And that was actually a really interesting one. And also, thank you once again, Spencer, for sponsoring that live chat. And so with that, let's get on to the next one, which I'm probably going to be really surprised who it is.
All right. And the next one goes to Robert Harrington, who puts in a $50 donation. He says, here's to your pizza fun, and keep up the great work, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt. And please take a question from the chat.
Ah, man, Robert coming in with the pizza fun. What is your favorite kind of pizza, Matthew?
I like that one with everything on it, Supreme. The stuff that's not even on the menu.
I want that stuff that's not on the menu. I would have to say, honestly, this is going to sound kind of bland, but I just really like a good pepperoni pizza.
I mean, that's good too, but I just like all the bell pepper and all that stuff on top of it.
I mean, yeah. But still, pepperoni is a classic flavor. It's good. But anyways, with that, I thank you for the support, Robert, and supporting our pizza fun and helping this channel to keep on running, because you're helping us to keep this thing turning and burning. Without y'all, this isn't possible. And so I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this thing to keep on rolling. And if I'm correct, Matty, did he want a live chat answered?
He did.
And let's get to it.
All right. And this question goes to LZ X-Ray 67, who says, can you ask the Enforcer on what he thinks about some generals and former CIA Chief Mike Pompeo are saying that they predict a war with China over Taiwan in 2 years?
I'm going to say that's highly unlikely because... So wait a minute. They're saying, and let me get this correct, Matthew. The question is asking... what do I think about people saying that the Chinese and the United States are going to go into an open war, a total war over Taiwan?
That's true, but this time it's not just people saying it. It's military generals and also the former CIA chief.
How many times have people been that accurate years and years before anything would happen about a war occurring? I would have to say...
It can be based on... like hardcore intelligence. It must just be their gut feeling or something.
I'm going to say that's highly unlikely. The situation in between the United States and China is actually symbiotic. We buy goods from them, they make money off of us, so we have an incredibly large stake in not going to war with them. The Chinese also have an incredibly large stake with not going to war with us, because a lot of their GDP growth comes from trade with the European Union and the United States. An all-out war in between the Chinese and the United States would lead to the Chinese economy practically starting to crumble as soon as the war began, because trade would not be possible. Of course, you're at war, so trade is the exact opposite. War is the exact opposite conditions you need to facilitate trade. So for the economic reasons, it most likely will not happen. For the other reason, China and the United States are both nuclear powers, so it wouldn't really make a lot of sense for them to go to war and one try and curb stomp the other, because at the end of the day, just like with the Russians and the United States, nukes can start flying and people get killed. Hundreds of millions of people get killed. And so I would say that's highly unlikely for those two reasons. And I don't know why people go around and say that kind of stuff, because if I remember correctly, pretty much every single war that has ever happened, except for a few, has taken people by surprise. Like, for example, the Second World War with Germany invading Poland. No one really expected that that was going to really happen, because up until that point, it was all about appeasement. They're like, wait, if we stop appeasing him, he'll quit. And then he didn't. With Japan, there was Pearl Harbor. No one was really expecting that, except for a very small amount of people at the very top of the government. And also, World War I was not expected to happen at all. No one even had an inkling that World War I would happen when it did. It just happened to be so that some guy called Archduke Ferdinand got shot in his car in the middle of Sarajevo, and that started the bloodiest war that humanity had seen up till that point. So I don't really trust people who say that within a certain time frame a war will begin, because that is forecasting, and forecasting as far as geopolitical situations like a war go are usually always wrong. Always. You can't...
And also, I got to say that Mike Pompeo, he may have a good resume, but he's kind of a little bit discredited in my eyes a little bit because of everything that happened in the past with his position recently. I personally wouldn't put much stock in his opinion.
I can't. I'm not even going to make a point to speak on that because I don't try and get into politics at all, and I'm not talking about Mike Pompeo on a political level or any of them for that matter. But I am talking about the idea or the logic behind trying to forecast something like that is just completely asinine. There's no point in it. It never becomes true because you can't forecast those kinds of things. Like, who's to say this? Who's to say that because the Chinese economy is having some tough times right now, there isn't a political reshuffling in the future, and we see that Xi Jinping somehow either dies or gets ousted, and a new government comes in with a whole different way of operating China, and they start to liberalize their economy a whole lot like they did in the 80s. You know, who's to say that that wouldn't happen again? No one knows. You can't forecast that stuff like 2 years into the future because so many things. There's it completely baffles me when people say stuff like that. There are 8 billion people alive in this world right now. There is 1.1 billion of those people living in China and about 350 million of them living in the United States. It would make no sense at all to be able to predict how the next 2 years would go with that many little moving parts in just China and the United States alone, much less the other I don't know, about 7 billion people that live in the rest of the world that could do something that could change the way the next 2 years go. So I would be honest with you, I don't see a war happening.
Is this why Mike Pompeo might have said what he said because he's trying to sell a book? Is that it? I see a bunch of people saying he's trying to sell a book.
Oh my God. Wait a minute. Is anyone saying the name of the book?
No, but it's probably like a memoir or something like that.
Oh boy.
Like the Expose All book, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure that this has nothing to do with selling a book. It wouldn't surprise me at all because I think that's how everyone tries to make money in the government these days, is selling a book. I can't stand that stupid stuff, man. Like, everyone in the government has a book to peddle. Like, what the hell are all of you? Like, what are you, Barnes & Noble? I thought you were the U.S. government. What are we doing around here, trying to join the book club? But anyways, we're going to be moving on from that one and on to the last one. But thank you so much once again, Robert Harrington, for the support, helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that addresses the question fairly well.
All right. And our final super chat of the first segment goes to Steven Safruk, who puts in a $22 donation and says, a small thanks for your hard work and great coverage. Thumbs up.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you so much for enjoying the channel because it means a whole load to us that people like this channel. And I'm completely blown away that right now 6,000 of y'all are watching and y'all enjoy it. Like, that still blows Matthew and me away because I think, Matthew, you were watching some super large channel. We won't name them, but they have like, what, 3 million subscribers or something like that?
Yeah.
Something like that. They were running a stream and they only had 1,500 people watching live. And we were like, dang. Like, the Lee Spring Army is...
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about now. I was having to think about it.
And also, I know that people are going to be connecting to us. It's not Funker 530. No, it's not them. But it was some other channel. And we were, like, kind of sitting there and thinking, dang, like, the Lee Spring Army is a really, really active community. Like, there is no other community out there watching live streams that we know of that is even close to being in the topic we're in that watch at this level live. Like, that was really crazy to us, and I find it to be a high honor that y'all enjoy this enough that y'all get on here every single night and watch this stream, because I'm still baffled that so many of y'all do enjoy it. Like, I don't know if we're deserving of that or what, but I got to thank y'all once again for watching it, because it means a lot to me, especially because I put, I think at this point, I'd have to do the math, but like 1,200 or 1,300 hours into just running this stream over the course of a whole year. And that's crazy to think that y'all have enjoyed it so much. But with that, thank you so much once again. I'm glad that you are enjoying this channel, and thank you so much for the support and helping us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, we've now covered the last question of that segment, and we're now going to be moving on back into our little bits of news. And starting off with this little bit of a, I guess you could say, a disturbing one. It's not graphic, but it is slightly disturbing. A Foreign Legion member got hit by a shell, and we could see how this unit reacted, which was very quick, and you've got to commend the reaction time. And so, of course, I'm going to give this a quick note. You are going to be watching an artillery shell explode almost right in front of this guy, about 10 yards away, so be ready. So here we go. Done. Sitting here, the shell explodes, but you see he went flying through the air and landed. And we can see that the rest of his squad immediately came running over to him. As soon as he landed on the ground, they're already on top of him and trying to assess how badly he's been injured and help him out. This is something you do not see in a Russian unit. And we can see that he has been injured. Some shrapnel has hit him. So right now they're checking him for wounds, trying to figure out where the shrapnel went. They're pulling out, I believe, a tourniquet. And that's the end of the clip. It was not that long at all, but one thing I have to say is it's unbelievable to see the camaraderie in the Ukrainian units compared to a Russian one. If we had seen this happen in a Russian unit, they would have all gotten up and ran past this guy, and that would have been the end of the clip. This guy would have been left to deal with it on his own or just sit there and die. But this unit got right on top of this guy, helped him out immediately, and also it's another thing. It really puts you in the shoes for a second. You can't even empathize. I can't even empathize with this, but you can try about what the Foreign Legion and soldiers like these are going through, because this happens a decent amount. While, of course, the Ukrainians are usually able to inflict heavy losses on the Russians, of course, losses are inherent in every war on both sides, and the Ukrainians do take losses too. And this time it was an International Legion member, and we can see that by and large, he took it like a champ, and his squad mates came over and they were immediately helping him out with the first aid, trying to make sure that he was taken care of. And you've got to give a huge credit, again, just the biggest credit you can, to the Foreign Legion members. They do a terrific job over there. They don't even have to be there, but they're there for the sole purpose and belief of what Ukraine is for. And so, of course, got to give a huge credit to him. I hope this guy's all right. We don't really know how badly he's injured or what happened to him after this clip, but hopefully he's okay. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this one bit of news we got from day 342, and we're now going to be moving on to today's Location Unknowns, where we saw another interview with another crab team operating a different kind of crab in a different part of the country. Here's the video.
Працюємо доволі таки часто. Багато стріляємо, ганяємо, ворогів, б'ємо. 4 місяці ми тут. Роботи багато. Буває ночі, і днем. Ще 24/7. Працюємо, все заради перемоги. Машина хороша, в обслуговуванні теж хороша. Точність дуже хороша. Удобно, місця є для екіпажу і переночувати. Ми тут і живемо.
They literally live in. They're literally living in there.
Але ми краще за них працюємо.
Я відповідаю за заряджання боєприпасів в ствол, їх скорость виконання, щоб можна було поразити ціль швидше. Зручність в роботі, немає гільз. Допустим, у нас були заряди другого виробника, соответственно, ними було незручно працювати. Цими більш зручніше буде. По піхоті, по техніці так. Надіємося, що вони вже драпають від нас. Скільки можна. Працюємо ми постійно, так як ми хочемо пошвидше вигнати врага своєї землі.
See them firing that crab again.
Ноги екіпажу. Тимчасово покинути вогневу позицію, якщо по нам ведеться обстріл. Раніше до краба я був механіком 2С-19 СТАЕС. Це краб набагато удобніший і маневреніший в керуванні і швидший.
Тим людям, які знаходяться зараз в безпеці, хочу сказати, щоб ви не забували про нас, що ми є тут.
Тримайтесь, ми вас захищаємо. Все буде добре.
Все буде Україна.
Well, that's the end of the clip. But once again, really need to hear of the crab crews, what they're doing, and helping to dispense the crabs to all the Russian forces. With that, we're now moving on to the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we saw a Ukrainian Mi-24 flying at a very low altitude. It was a very cool video. We're going to have to mute that. The beats are dropping, though. Just like the Russians that are going to be dropping from the rocket fire. And we can see it flying right over the cars on the road, right over the ambulances. And the supply cars as well, the supply vans. Now you can see it lifting up and going over some tarpaulin trucks. You see that they are flying right on top of that road, right over the highway. Pretty cool overall. It's really neat to watch this footage. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip, where we also saw the Russian losses for the day, and of course the Russians are losing hundreds of guys still. 850 Russian troops approximated to have been killed over the past 24 hours, bringing the number up to 127,500. They also lost another 9 armored personnel carriers, 7 supply trucks, no tanks, which is somewhat bizarre, 1 artillery piece, 4 drones, an MLRS, and a Bobcat skid steer. Again, the Bobcat skid steers are starting to pile up, and the numbers are really starting to count. But once again, the Russians have been losing high infantry losses, and this could be associated with a lot of the forest fighting that's occurring in the southern area of the Bakhmut line, and also the suicidal pushes occurring around the Volodar area. And so once again, nice to see, and hopefully the Ukrainians can continue to keep these numbers high. We're now moving on into our last bit of location unknown news, where we saw a failed Russian attack, and I'm sure these will be added to tomorrow's kill counts, because the amount of vehicles destroyed in such a small area is the likes of which we've never seen. There's a couple over there.
Not that flute.
There's some here. Dozens. I love this song. This is my favorite rendition. Oh my god, man, look at all of them. That's like 12
Dang.
BMDs in this tree line, like if you look at the whole thing. And another one. And some more. I think they lost an entire brigade in this area or something. I mean, like, the vehicle losses are unbelievable. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from this clip. Very nice to see. We're now moving out of the location unknowns and on into the next bit of news in the northeastern area. And going over the map analysis, nothing much has happened over the past 48 hours in the northeast again. You can see that it was just small frontline changes, nothing large. And we can see that in the Dubrova area, the Russians have actually moved back into the village and are sitting there. That's happened about a week ago, but I have to point that out. Moving on into the news from that area around Kremenna today, we did see a Russian tank getting destroyed. That's some music right there, I'll tell you. But we can see the tank kablooey, and we can see the Russians running away from their supply truck, going, oi, 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 but with that. That's the end of the clip, and very nice to see. Another tank lost. We're now moving on from the northeastern area, because there's not much to report here, and down on into the Bilorivka area, where we saw a Russian SPG get destroyed. Oh, gotta mute that copyrighted music, but there goes the bomb bliyet. Oh, Ivan, look! A shooting star, make a wish! Oh, look, another one, make a wish! Oh, look, a third one, we're very lucky, 3rd time's the charm, bliyet. Oh, it was! Oh my god! Well, it looks like the Russians' wish did not come true, but the Ukrainian one did. Oh, bliyet. The commander will not like this.
The Russians begin to churn and burn inside of their charcoal fire, enjoying the light and warmth that they have not received over the course of several months.
Oh man, that thing has made the entire ground look like a big night sky filled with stars. So many stars that you can make a wish on, Matthew.
Oh.
Very nice. That's the end of the clip.
So nice.
Very nice. And with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Bilorivka area and down on into the Bakhmut front. Over the past 48 hours, you're not going to believe it. I'm sure this is going to come as a shock to many of you. The movement has been small. The Russians were able to make more progress in the tree line east of Klishkivka, but beyond that, there has been no forward movement in helping out with this encirclement. They have not been able to fight or take Krasnohora. They haven't even been able to move into the town yet, and it appears that they're still moving north on this creek. Why? I have no idea. I don't know if they're trying to move north to move on and make a encirclement near Pravilla, but that means that the encirclement is going to be way larger than originally anticipated and will require a lot of manpower that they do not have, which will make this a lot more difficult on their end. But beyond that, Once again, the Russians have lost about 1,600 guys dead to really take one small area in the tree line. And so let's start looking at the clips, starting off in the furthest northern area today, where we saw the showdown of the century. The Azov unit took on the Wagner near Bakhmut. I'm sorry, actually, interestingly enough, it looks like, I don't know why, I swore when I saw this originally that was an Azov unit symbol. Apparently that's the 3rd Tank Brigade. The symbol is very similar there, but this is actually the 3rd Tank Brigade going up against the Wagner. Not the showdown of the century like I was hoping, but it's still incredibly good. Let me turn this up real quick. We hear some gunfire going on outside. We see them getting into the trench.
Куда крыть? Философ питает, куда крыть?
See them moving alongside the technical in the trench. You can see them all just kind of hanging out, shelling, firefight going on.
Я підозрюю, що ще один живий підер тут, бо одного я забаранив, який повзав, другий.
Мороз я крию.
They're firing as their soldier in front of them advances.
Пустой. Маленький, что ты? Даю. Давай. Вниз.
We see them continuing to fire in the direction of the Russians. We can also see a Snickers, because you're not you without a Snickers crate.
Granata!
Wait, was there really a Snickers out there?
Yeah, there was a little Snickers bar right down there. You see it? It's the bottom right. He'll move the camera back down. You'll see it again. We now see the next guy advancing. We see him firing to cover the advance. And there it is, the Snickers at the bottom right.
There it is.
We now see this soldier advancing as well through the mud.
Сюда, бежу!
You now see that he's getting in the trench with him. Shell went flying over and exploded nearby.
Предложите ему сдаться.
Кому?
Пидору.
Все, що тут є, це вот. Де калаха? Все, її немає, її пізда. Ну, вона клине нахуй. Все, що є, у мене в руках, і в мене є час з хуєм відео, як розхуярюють.
You hear another round flying over and exploding.
Я тримаю.
Так, вот такая по нам хуярили.
Да.
Тихо, аккуратно.
You see him spraying through the tree line. Getting right back down.
Гранат!
Tossing a grenade. We see that guy checking his rifle to make sure there's no obstructions by aiming it at the cameraman. I'm not sure if that was an oversight. I believe it was.
Либер, вставай.
You now see them moving up the trench. Getting down as the shell whizzes overhead and explodes.
Граната!
See them tossing a grenade down the trench. It explodes with a loud thud. They move up past the ammo can on the floor. Now moving further down the trench. And Jay, we did not see this a few days ago. This is a brand new clip. Here, another shell exploding overhead. Here, another one landing really close nearby.
It looks like they are making a mistake, though. They're grouped up.
Yeah, they are grouping up a good bit. We can see a drone flying over. We're not sure if it's Ukrainian or Russian at this point, but they're not shooting at it, so it must be Ukrainian.
Что, Либер, я ебашу? Може. Оставить на лучшее время.
Hear them whispering. It may be because the Russians are close.
Нам дрончик показує, де він.
We now see that they've gotten atop the trench and they're moving further down. You see, it looks like the dust cover may have just popped off the top of that AK. He's putting it back on. You see him loading a grenade into his grenade launcher, underslung on the AK.
That's handy.
He must be the squad's grenadier. He's now firing the grenade. It explodes ahead of him. Firefight still continuing. It appears that the Russians are further down the trench, about 50 yards away. You see them continuing to fire down the trench at where the Russians are. Another round explodes right over them, a grenade most likely. You see him reloading another grenade into the grenade launcher. Moving forward, kneeling, aiming, and firing. And then it explodes right inside the trench, about 50 yards away where the Russians may be. When you see the man in front of him, it appears that he lobbed a grenade.
This guy up front better watch his back, because this second guy's going to end up shooting him.
I doubt it. He seems to be pretty careful with trigger discipline so far.
Работа, Мирон.
See him firing another grenade.
Воги, есть воги? Дайте вог.
Вог дать?
Да, подожди. Мирон, подожди, пригнись, Мирон.
See another grenade exploding further down the line. Fired from the grenadier.
Сука! Пидорасы, ёбаные. Давай, блядь, кидай вог, сука. Кидай. Ебой. Блядь, погоди, сука. Давай.
Now see him getting a brand new grenade.
Мирон! Пригнись, Мирон!
Now fired it further down the trench again. We can actually see they're having a fun time with this firefight. They're laughing, joking.
Блядь, Мирон, сука, ходит быстро, пизда. Мирон, пригнись!
Dang, that guy literally just, like, leaned back out of the way of the grenade. That was a brave move.
Выход! РПГ бежит, куда работает?
No, they're now firing at an RPG, a man with an RPG.
Я думаю, накрыл, хуй знает.
You see the fire is continuing. The group is moving forward a little bit and continuing to fire.
Наших вогов накидывай.
When you see that they're grouping up again.
Дайте вог, блядь. Далеко кинул. Ебать, четко вогами победал. Пизда, я тебя базарил. Чуть растянуться надо вогами, чуть-чуть. Чтоб сюда, если... Вот так где-то, да. Чуть-чуть растянитесь, чуть-чуть.
You can hear the rounds cracking right overhead, the return fire coming back from the Russians.
Посмотри на то, что долго нельзя стоять на одном месте.
We hear him espousing some knowledge of not staying in the same place for too long.
Минус нету. Есть.
We now see them trying to get a grenade. See them launching one. We can see him also preparing to launch one as well. It appears that there was a misfire. He's now moving back to try and fix the misfire.
Трубы забрали? Да приди. Откатывай.
Now see him moving down this trench littered with RPGs and other accoutrements of the Russian forces. For lack of a better word.
Ушел. Тут еще перед тобой есть?
It appears that they're now moving back down the trench. They may be disengaging from the firefight.
Вперед растягиваемся. Вперед чуть прорастянись.
We can actually see a Russian down there.
У меня ХПшки закрыть его.
Blurred out, so you know, I don't really know if it's a Russian or not.
Иду.
Now stepping over the mired part of the ground.
Что делаем? Крою. Чтобы не подошли. Аккуратно, секс впереди работает. Справа в окопе секс, аккуратно, внимательно.
Ебать, он вонючий, сука.
Готово? Отходим?
Отходим.
Секс, выходи, держу. Секс, выходи. Секс, отход. Где секс, блядь? Секс. Давай, держу тебя. Давай, иди, не с этой, стреляй, иди.
Imagine being a Russian and just hearing a Ukrainian yelling, sex! Yeah, those Russians must be scared. They're like, oh, bleh, bad things come for us.
Не могу, заклинаю ХПшкой, братанчик.
It sounds as though his grenade launcher is jammed. They're still moving up the trench.
Да, отход. Отходим? Пока держим тут, секс. Держим тут. Вверх накрыть. Мы кроем с тобой здесь.
Я с собой.
Now see that grenadier firing his grenade.
Есть.
Firing the grenade. He's now grabbing another VOG and loading it in. It looks very questionable how they're loading that, just like right with the rifle barrel pointing at him, but I guess there's no other way. Now loading another one.
Хуй знает, проверь. Клинчик? Да. Все, отходим? Нет. Все. Отход, отход. Секс, отход. Секс, отход. Кроет.
We now see them retreating and firing as the rest of their squad moves back.
Да, закрою! Да, закрою!
They're now moving back to their original position after a small firefight with the Russians.
Все! Хуй ХПшку четко накидывал. Я не ожидал. Хорошо ХПшкой накидывал. Куда хотел, туда и башил.
Четко нахуй ложил вообще.
Ты видел? Я охуел. Охуенно, да? Я охуел. Это я только навесом стрелял до этого.
Now see him getting into a dugout.
Сука! Хуй знает. Кому-то в голову походу попал. Видел каску и въебал в каску. Кого въебало?
Я не знаю.
Осколок? Осколок?
Осколок или был?
Да, да, ты что, я без нее, блядь.
Айвак едет?
Да не суетиться и разъедиться, блядь.
Блядь, слышу, ебалы! Видали?
А прикинь, еще и раз залезал, бля, говорю, ебать.
Шерлок, трубы забрали?
Я забрал трубы, которые эти одноразки. Вон я забрал.
Quite a large group here, which is somewhat concerning.
На Шерлоком на позиции.
Сука, две вонючки, блядь.
Да?
And with that, that's the end of the clip, but giving you an idea of what the 3rd Tank Brigade is doing to the Wagner up there in the area around Soledar. Moving on to our next clip, we also saw Medyar near the front lines, but unfortunately with this one, I know I'm going to have to cut this one short. It is already 11:42 Eastern Time, and this video is 13 minutes long. So I will not be able to show any of this today, but if you do want to watch this clip, you can click on the link in the description below, which will take you to today's map, day 343, and you can click on this exact link and watch this thing at your own speed. Moving on into the center of the Bakhmut line, we also saw a shell land incredibly close to a Ukrainian soldier here. They're walking out of the house, round explodes, and they go right back down into the staircase. You can also see the other guys come back, and it appears that they were not that badly wounded because they were actually able to walk back in. So fairly lucky for these guys, and with that, once again, another close call. We're now moving on into the next clip from the Bakhmut area, where we saw another firefight occurring somewhere on the eastern side of the town. We can hear a machine gun from the Humvee in front of them firing into the village, as the infantry lag behind for a minute.
Пацаны, я выйду.
Now see them running forward with an RPG right by the Humvee. Humvee still continuing to fire into the area. See him aiming the RPG, preparing to fire. He now fires the RPG. But first he has to prepare it a little bit more. Aims the RPG once more, fires, hits right on its target.
Damn, son.
He goes running back.
You know, I wonder if anybody's ever hit the gas pipes, you know, they're suspended in midair with the machine gun.
I wonder.
That'd probably be interesting to see.
That would, you know, I would actually be fairly interested to see that too. But you see him yelling backblast. He's getting ready to fire it down the alley. He's moving down the alley. Getting into the open for a second. Moving forward a little bit more, aiming, firing, and he runs back immediately. It sounds like he hit something.
Dang.
Не, отсюда больше нельзя. У меня есть. Ой, блядь, по крыше нахуй.
So well, that's the end of the clip, but once again showing the firefights that are still ongoing in the Bakhmut area, and most likely the reason why the Russians are having such high casualties. Moving on into yesterday, we also saw an update from Bakhmut, but real quick, I'm going to have to make sure it is not that long. It's only a minute and 20 seconds, so here's the update.
Hey, voices for Ukraine. So again, I'm on the front line near Bakhmut. Crazy situation because I'm sitting in trench. This is my AK and this is my sniper rifle. So what can I say? We are in position. It's only few of us sitting here in the field, and enemies there and there and there also. So they almost surrender us. They almost around us, and we are in situation when they can approach to our position from any direction. In this situation, maybe your mood can be not so happy and not so high, but for now it's pretty warm weather, and I bring to position delicious coffee and I'm still alive, so life is really amazing, guys. Life is really amazing.
And so with that, that's the end of the clip, and we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news from the area, where we also got an update from Bakhmut, from the man of Bakhmut himself. Here's the clip.
Вітання, Україна, друзі. Якщо коротко, Солідар, Бахмут, напружені бої, багато нічних днівних штурмів, застосовуються малі і великі піхотні групи противника. Там вже всі змішалися, і вагнера, і десантні, і мотопіхотні, лізуть як таргани при підтримці артилерії і авіації, намагаються продавити, лізуть під привінтінчиком якимсь. Лежать вже сотнями навколо Бахмута і старі трупаки, і нові, але це їх не стримує. У них є приказ, треба лізти. Ну, лізуть, дохнуть, нічого не міняється. Наші підрозділи, зараз заїхала там одна славетна бригада і славетний полк, не буду говорити які, їм вже досталася ситуація, яка досталася, зараз хлопці виправляють ситуацію, яка їм по наслідству досталась. Там дуже, скажімо так, славетні козаки, які знають свою роботу, угамовують цих пацієнтів сумасшедших, які з дуркою втекли, і відправляють на концерт Кобзона. Тому, друзі, будемо чекати прес-реліз від прес-офіцерів їхніх там бригад. Коли буде за можливо вважати щось викладати, вони скажуть. Скажу лише коротко, там підрозділи тримають лінію оборони. В самому місті Бахмуті він повністю під контролем Збройних сил. Бої тривають за околицями міста. Місто потерпає, як і потерпало від обстрілів, але то вже таке. Друзі, в цьому відео хочу подяку виразити волонтерам, які дуже допомагають не тільки нашому підрозділу, а й всім Збройним силам. Це дійсно велетенська робота, яка, скажімо так, мало оцінена. Також хочу подякувати деяким побратимам із Збройних сил, в частності Андрію Коваленку, який допоміг саме нашому підрозділу. Він передав екофло, зарядну станцію Майвіки, пульт для управління Майвіком і допоміг розмістив у себе на каналі відео з моїми побратимами. У мене там заблокували аккаунт, я не можу для збору коштів. І козаки, які працюють з тяжкого, у них не було автівки. Зараз зібрали кошти, там я відео викладав. Колумбії Чівас, є біля літачка відео. Козаки на автівці, подяка всім небайдужим, хто відгукнувся, і окремо Андрію Коваленко. От бачите, людина служить і допомагає. На таких людей завжди можна розраховувати. Вони ніколи не продадуть, завжди підставлять плече. І завдяки таким людям тримаються Збройні сили. Чесним і порядним. Так що, друзі, завжди потрібно консолідуватися, бути разом. І тільки разом ми зможемо перемогти. Якісь там глобальні здвиги будуть, отримуємо інформацію, викладемо додаткове відео. Поки що наразі так. Тримаємо стрій, Бахмут – це Україна, там жовто-блакитний стяг. Слава нації, смерть ворогам.
And with that, that is the end of the summary of what's going on in the Bakhmut area. And of course, while it's still difficult, the Ukrainian forces are still holding on. We're now going to be moving on down into the southern area, where we also saw in the Klishkivka region a failed Russian assault. We gotta mute that because that may be bussin'. Man, that may be bussin', man, but we can't have none of that. But you see, the Russian assault did fail, and this may be the reason why the casualties have been slightly high today. Moving on back into the area of Ivaniski, we also saw a Panzerhaubitze 2000 shooting a rocket-assisted projectile, also known as RAP. Matthew, rap for us.
No.
Those little things are rocket-assisted projectiles, I'll tell you that. You can clearly see them.
Also, real quick, clarification on the poll. Ukraine Giga Chad is the fellow from the last clip.
Man, he's just labeling the guy the Giga Chad. We now see the Panzerhaubitze 2000 packing up and getting ready to ship really quickly. And so with that, we're now moving on to our last clip from the southern area around Stupotsky, where we saw a hard-working Buke. This crew has actually gotten a order of courage, 2 orders of courage, because this single Buke alone, the one you see right here, has shot down 15 Russian jets over the course of 8 months. Incredible. And also, it's destroyed 17 drones as well. And so they've gotten 2 orders of courage in this Buke, and that is something, actually. That's crazy to think that this thing has gotten nearly 32 kills total over the course of this war, both drones and aircraft. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and out of the Bakhmut area because, of course, the front line isn't moving much. We're now moving down into Avdiivka, where we also saw the Russians getting hit in the trench today by a drone.
І ось десь звідси пробувати.
I have to mute it because the music is bussing as usual. But when you see a little yellow dot moving around the screen, we can also see a red one as well. And it appears that some kind of fire occurred from the Russian trench. Not really sure what kind. We see a Russian just sitting right there. Oh, I believe that yellow dot's showing the kamikaze drone flying around. It is, actually. See it flying over the trench. The Russians trying to shoot at it, but to no avail. The kamikaze drone is now flying around still, looking at the Russian. The Russian, in panic, is staring at it, but not firing. He is in awe of this thing. He's in absolute awe of the size of this lad. It's now flying in, and it looks like it got him. Like a Viper going to strike, it was just within seconds that thing flew in. We now see the smoke billowing out of the trench, and another successful drone run. Well, that's the end of the clip. But once again, fairly nice to know that the Ukrainians are using anything and everything in their ability to try and stop Russian pushes, and also eventually cause enough losses to push them out. Moving on down into the Marinka area, we also saw some Ukrainian artillery hit a Russian command base somewhere behind the lines. I do not think this is copyrighted. Like, what is this from, 1902? There's no way this is copyrighted, so we're going to play this from the start. Watch it be copyrighted. And there goes the command base. I feel like I ought to become like a transatlantic radio commentator.
Oh, those Russians are really getting it good now. My golly, Jimmy.
He goes pretty good.
My golly, Jimmy, they're just running around down there, completely confused.
Damn, son, where'd you find this one?
well, golly, Johnny boy, where did you find this clip? We can see them driving off in the BMW, but alas, the motorcycle cannot carry 3 men. The load
Mister, are they gonna make it?
Oh, golly, I do not think they're going to make it. They had to leave one behind, silly little man.
But anyways, that's the end of that clip. And also, that is, I believe, what is it? The Maple Leaf Rag or something like that?
I think so.
Yeah, but anyways, we're now going to be moving on from this clip, but nice to see that they were able to get a command base and also give us a funny little diddle to sing along with. We're now going to be moving on into, well, out of the Donetsk area and on down into Volodar to a small clip we got today showing how the battle is progressing in this area.
Музыканты, бакс, прием.
Він в'їбав. Только куда нахуй? Тільки хуй пойми куда нахуй.
We see that Volodar doesn't look like it's in all too good a shape.
Музикант, ти не туди в'їбав. Або пролетіло сквозь.
Він лівіше в'їбав, да?
Та він не все, бля, перед собою б'є нахуй.
Десь по забору хуя.
Та перед собою нахуй.
Вище, вище хоти.
Підніми вище, музикант, вище підніми, йобне.
Everyone's already warning me, man. Everyone's like, good impersonation, don't overuse it.
That was the best one yet. I gotta go for the gold on that one.
Agent A16 enforcer should do stand up. Nah. Yeah, sure.
Он опять дёрнул, опять не долет. Еще выше. Направление
You
правильно.
should try to sit down.
No, get out of here. I just realized what you meant by that.
Что?
Нет, следующий дом.
Чуть правіше, дай йому.
We see the artillery exploding all across the town.
Правіше одного, огонь.
А нет, блядь. Или подожди, или кто? Блядь, не видно нихуя нахуй, який дом.
It appears that the Russians are getting good and well whacked. I'll tell you what.
Приходи возле вже. Хай вже в'єбає.
Відкат! Музикант, відкат!
Another round exploding. A couple of rounds exploding, actually.
Поїхав?
Ні, ще стоїть.
Музикант,
Все, поїхав.
відкат.
Поїхав.
Well, that's the end of the clip, but once again showing you the devastation and also the ferocity of the battle that's occurring in the small town of Volodar. Well, we have actually covered every single clip from every area of the world today, and so now it's time for us to go to the President of Ukraine's website and listen to his speech from day 343 of the war. And so without further ado, here is the speech.
Здоров'я, шановні українці. Короткий звіт про сьогоднішній день. Фіналізуємо нашу підготовку до саміту Україна-ЄС, який запланований на цей тиждень. Загалом, тиждень має бути повною мірою цього слова євроінтеграційним. Ми очікуємо новин для України. Очікуємо рішень наших партнерів в Євросоюзі, які будуть відповідати досягнутому рівню взаємодії між нашими інституціями та ЄС і нашому прогресу. Прогресу, який, очевидно, є навіть попри повномасштабну війну. Сьогодні провів тривалу нараду з міжнародним блоком уряду і офісу. Готуємо українські пропозиції для переговорів з представниками ЄС. І дуже важливо, готуємо нові реформи в Україні. Реформи, які в багатьох аспектах змінять соціально-правову та політичну реальність, зроблять їх людяніше, прозоріше, ефективніше. Але ці деталі згодом з результатами відповідних зустрічей. Провів сьогодні, як і фактично щодня, кілька нарад з військовими, з керівництвом розвідки. Детально опрацьовуємо ситуацію на всіх основних оперативних напрямках та в перспективі, те, до чого готується окупант, і те, чим ми вже відповідаємо на таку підготовку Росії до спроби реваншу. Наші сили оборони та безпеки, державна влада України, наші партнери, ми всі разом спрямовуємо наші зусилля так, щоб Росії не лише не вдалося відігратись на полі бою, а щоб окупант втратив у своїх спробах реваншу останню надію на агресію. Програш Росії зробить безальтернативним надійний і тривалий мир. Я дякую всім нашим партнерам, які підтримують цю позицію України. Говорив сьогодні з прем'єр-міністром Канади Джастіном Трюдо. Поінформував його про ситуацію на полі бою, про постійні штурми на Донеччині, про ситуацію на півдні та наявні загрози. Обговорили, чим можна доповнити нашу оборонну взаємодію. Окремо торкнулося питання санкцій та міжнародної ізоляції Росії. Зокрема, я дякую Джастіну за розуміння нашого заклику до міжнародних олімпійських структур щодо неприпустимості будь-яких поступок державі-терористу. Олімпійський рух та міжнародний спорт загалом мають бути захищені від доволі звичних намагань Росії політизувати спорт. Ми це бачили неодноразово у різний час. І зараз же російська політизація спорту неминуче означатиме виправдання терору. Цього не можна допустити. І лише разом вільний світ може захистити спорт від тих спортивних бюрократів, які чомусь готові заплющити очі на реальність. Говорив сьогодні також з прем'єр-міністром Бельгії Олександром Де Кроо. Подякував за потужний оборонний пакет, який був затверджений нещодавно. Обговорили нашу співпрацю на міжнародних майданчиках, зокрема в ООН. Обговорили санкції проти Росії і черговий санкційний пакет. Також говорили і про взаємодію у захисті спорту та олімпійського руху від пропаганди терору. І ще одне, зараз певне кадрове затища, але це не означає, що всі необхідні кроки вже зроблені, будуть рішення. Тим у системі, хто не відповідає принциповим вимогам держави і суспільства, не варто засиджуватись у кріслах. Я дякую кожному і кожній, хто захищає державу. Я дякую всім, хто воює за Україну. Я дякую за кожну збережену українську позицію на фронті. І дякую за кожну знищено позицію ворога. Слава Україні!
And so with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 343 of the war in Ukraine. And of course, that wraps up our news segment for the night. We'll now be moving on into our question segment where we're going to answer every single super chat and as many live chats as we can. Once again, just to reiterate this, you do not have to send in the super chat to have your question answered. Some super chats actually ask us to answer live chat questions in replacement of theirs, so of course we get to those whenever we do. And also, the purpose of the super chat, just in case if anyone's wondering how that works and why we do it, the purpose of the super chat is that you can watch this show for absolutely free. You don't have to watch an ad, you don't have to do anything. But if you do want to help this channel to keep on running, you can only support us through super chat. That's how we have it set up, and you can also determine how much you find this channel to be worth if you want to support us. It could be anywhere from $1 to, I think, the max. I don't know what the max is. I think it's $500, but I don't know. Anyways, with that, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And we're now going to be moving on into our polls and then get into the first questions. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right. And we have 4 polls to address this time for the final question segment. And the first one says, Russian troops are turning Bakhmut into, quote-unquote, a total ruin, says Ukraine. And the question is, will it become the next Mariupol? It looks like 84% said yes, that's very likely. 7% said unsure, and 10% said no, that's not likely. And in this instance, I'm going to have to say yes, because Russia is fixating on Bakhmut for some reason. And I think they're going to level it just like they did Mariupol, if not maybe worse. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'm going to say probably so in some ways, probably not in others. If the Russians appear to get a strong chance of an encirclement going on around Bakhmut, the Ukrainians will most likely withdraw instead of leaving forces there to get obliterated in the siege, because that wouldn't really make much sense in the long term for Ukraine. But in other respects, like the level of barrages and the amount of damage occurring to Bakhmut, I would say it is probably heading in the direction of Mariupol. And so with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
The next poll says Russia sent more than 9,000, quote-unquote, illegally mobilized citizens back home, said Russia's general prosecutor. What are your thoughts? 74% said that's propaganda, likely not true. 14% said unsure. 8% said it's partially true. And 3% said it is true. Russia sent them back. Now, definitely propaganda. We can't believe anything coming out of Russia, especially not from the general prosecutor. If anything, they might have come back, like some were saying in the chat earlier, maybe in a body bag. But they didn't come back alive, would be my guess. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would assume that that's probably some kind of propaganda, because they are not returning any manpower, most likely because they don't really have the ability to. And also, who the hell is determining that these people were illegally conscripted? You know, the whole point of the conscription was to just grab up anyone. The Russians knew who they were grabbing. So why in the world are they acting like now that they're going to start being the good guys? And on top of that, that doesn't make them look good to say that 9,000 people were conscripted illegally. That's a massive number. That's the amount of infantry that are present in a single Victory Day parade every single year in Russia. And they're saying that
that's considered a small oversight in Russia. That's not major.
It is a small bureaucratic oversight, Blia. Do not blame government. Blame the guys who got conscripted. It's their fault. Or we'll start blaming it on some kind of minority or something, you know, because that's typical Russian way. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one, yeah?
And the next one says, Croatia's president objects to the West sending weapons to Ukraine and says it only prolongs the war. What are your thoughts? 81% said that sounds suspicious and not good. 8% said unsure. 7% said he's partially correct. And 3% said he's right. It only prolongs the war. Now on this, I was kind of shocked because Croatia is a NATO member. But their president said, quote unquote, that he believes it's mad that that people believe that Russia can be defeated in a conventional war. So to me, that sounds anti-Ukraine, and that is definitely not good coming out of Croatia. So that's very disappointing to hear. But Enforcer, what say you?
Hasn't everyone beat Russia in a war at one point or another? You know, I'm just saying. It's kind of stupid to say, because like how the Georgians nearly beat them, the Chechens beat them once. Like who else has beat Russia? Afghanistan beat Russia. Let's see, who else? Japan beat Russia. France beat Russia. The Ottoman Empire, which is now Turkey, defeated Russia. The British have defeated Russia. The Germans may as well have defeated the Russians in the First World War by transporting the nuclear bomb that was Lenin into Russia and then allowing him to just be set loose on the public. That sounds like almost like Lenin was a serial killer or something, saying it that way. But in the end, he kind of would be. But yeah, you know, everyone's been able to beat Russia in a conventional war throughout most of history. It wouldn't really be that surprising if the Ukrainians were able to do it too. And also Finland. I can't forget Finland. They beat them in a conventional war as well. So, with that, I hope that this answers the poll fairly well, because that just sounds like stupid talk from Croatia. And why? Why would they say something like that? That's just silly. But with that, we are on to the next one. Yeah, if we have another one, and if not, we are on to the questions.
And the final poll says, who is your favorite Ukrainian soldier from the choices? Not surprisingly, Maidar won with 49%. 13% went to Ukraine Giga Chad, and 13% went to the good old faithful Professor Mortar, while 26% said unsure and undecided. On this one, I gotta give it to Professor Mortar. He's a OG on the channel. Maidar is definitely a legend in his own right, but we all have a special place in our heart for Professor Mortar. But, Enforcer, what say you?
Professor Mortar was a G, man. I like Professor Mortar, but I gotta say, Maidar has definitely taken front and center stage recently, and we usually don't go out of our way to make individuals a big deal on this channel, but Maidar is a fairly big deal, especially in terms of the war footage department coming out of the Bakhmut area. So I would definitely say that Maidar has become one of my favorite Ukrainians that we've talked about on this channel over the course of the war. And so with that, I hopefully answers the question fairly well, yeah, and we're on to the next one.
All right, and our first Super Chat question goes to Spencer, who puts in a $60 donation once again and says, what should the U.S. do if, hypothetically, Canada or Mexico plan to sign an alliance with China that would allow China to build bases near the U.S. border? I'm trying to understand Putin's calculus.
That would most likely cause the United States to have a large diplomatic upheaval or a diplomatic row in the United Nations, and we would probably also see the Monroe Doctrine get pulled out of the nether, and we would start talking about, you know, European powers cannot interfere in American continental affairs, because we pulled that thing out of the nether during the Cuban Missile Crisis, so we'd probably do it again. That would be the most likely mode of operandum. However, there is a difference, because that is somewhat similar, I guess you could say, to Russia's situation with Ukraine. There is a small difference, however. The United States is a global superpower, and for that reason, we have the ability to throw weight around. And you also have to, one has to remember, geopolitical situations are not supposed to be fair. It's not supposed to be, you know, well, we're not going to build, well, we're going to build NATO bases in Ukraine, and the Russians can build their own bases in Canada or Mexico. That's not the way the world works. The United States, the Russians are always trying to put themselves on an unlevel playing field with everyone else. The Chinese are as well, and we are on top of everything else. And we're probably the best at playing this game right now. We have military bases everywhere in the world. We also have the largest economy found anywhere in the world, and the largest military as well. So we kind of have the ability to say, because we are the massive power player, we're not going to have someone here, we're not going to have this there. The Russians, however, really can't. And that is a good question, and we would probably end up, if everything else failed diplomatically, we would probably end up causing a coup in Canada or Mexico to try and overthrow the current government and bring one in that's aligned to the United States, or maybe even invade them and then install a government to ensure that something like that wouldn't happen. But that is most likely what would occur. But once again, usually people always go about geopolitics and acting like, well, that's not fair. And that's right, it isn't fair, and that's the whole point. It's not supposed to be fair. We are trying to maintain our position as the strongest country in the world, and the one that is able to have the largest sphere of influence. And so we can't play fairly, otherwise everyone's going to have a fair sphere of influence, and we become third or second fiddle in our own game. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, but I thank you so much once again for the support, Spencer. And with that, we are on to the next one. Once again, a huge shout out to you, Spencer, for being the largest supporter of last Sunday's fundraiser. That was amazing.
Yes, indeed. And also, real quick, I saw Mick Ranger point something out, and I just want to check with you and see if you've covered it or not. It looks like Austria and Hungary have agreed not to supply weapons to Ukraine.
I have not heard about that, and I'll probably have to look into that later on. It wouldn't be surprising that the Hungarians would not supply arms, but the Austrians would be somewhat interesting. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Santiago Flores, who puts in a $20 donation and says, Happy Taco Tuesday from San Diego for the Whatever Fund. And pick a question from the live chat if you would, please.
And thank you so much for the support, Santiago Flores. You are always helping this channel to keep on running, and I gotta thank you so much for helping us out, because if it wasn't for viewers like y'all, this wouldn't be possible. And so with that, we will make sure to have ourselves a Taco Tuesday. I actually had tacos from Taco Bell today. Not really tacos, because that's Tex-Mex, so it's not really like real Mexican tacos. But maybe I'll have some like fish tacos in the future. Maybe next Tuesday. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Thank you for being a long-time Lee Spring Army soldier. And with that, let's get a question from the live chat.
And the live chat question is going to go to Packatang, who says, Enforcer, do you think this war is one of the most important events in the history of democracies? And what do you think are similarly significant events in the history of democracies?
I would say this isn't really a incredibly important battle in the history of democracies. I would say this is a very important strategic battle as far as NATO is concerned, with cornering the Russians, and also the Russians trying to break out and still expand and recreate the Russian imperial or the Soviet sphere that they had before. I would say it's very important in that regard. But in terms of democracy, it's not all that important, because a lot of democracies have already been created that were far more important in laying out the groundwork around the world. For example, the French Revolution, I would say, was very important, although it didn't last for long, because the French Revolution came and then it disappeared with Napoleon, and then France started flipping through governments, almost like that guy. What's his name, Matthew? He's the guy who was on Titanic. I won't let go, Jack.
On that one.
I don't know what his name is, but he but almost at the rate he flips through girlfriends that are about 30 years younger than him. That's about how quickly the French flip through governments, at least historically. But the French Revolution, the original one, was probably one of the most important, because the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen really kicked off the whole idea of democracy beyond the United States. The United States was the first modern democracy, but the French were kind of the one to take that idea into Europe, and then the Europeans were like, wow, this is kind of neat. Maybe we could start implementing this elsewhere. For example, the Turks, interestingly enough, would look at that, and Ataturk would kind of implement a lot of what Turkey is now off of the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen that the French made. Not anything, well, somewhat a little bit of what the United States did, but mostly based on the French model. Also, ever seeing Leonardo DiCaprio, that is the guy. But anyways, I would say that was probably one of the more important events in creating democracy. Of course, the United States was a very important event in creating a democracy at all, because the United States proved the theory that a country could break away, or a colony could break away and create their own government that had these kinds of ideas. Whether it worked or not was another question, because no one at that point in time, in the late 1700s, knew whether the United States would survive long or not. But the idea that the concept could even exist in reality was good enough for some, and that would inspire the French Revolution, which probably had much more of a greater impact on democracy around the world than the United States did. And then later on, of course, the United States going around the world after World War II, we would put in a democracy just about anywhere, and if we couldn't put in a democracy, then we would put in a dictatorship. Like, for example, I'm trying to think, Vietnam is probably the best example of a dictatorship, and also South Korea. We put one in there, and then in the 80s they went democratic. But still, I would say that the United States and France are still the most important implementations of democracy there is. Ukraine, not so much either, because they're not really fighting to create a democracy in Ukraine. They already have had one since the 90s. They're really just fighting to maintain their sovereignty. And also, the United States is vested in it, and the Western world is, for their strategic interests of protecting themselves from Russian expansion, and also putting the Russians at a severe disadvantage if a conventional war was to begin for some reason. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. A really interesting one. And thank you so much once again, Santiago, for the support and also sponsoring that really interesting live chat question. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the Taco Tuesday Fund.
All right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Psyops, who has a riddle. He says, give the chat a little bit to answer. And here's the riddle. What weighs more than a T-64, smells as bad as Texas, wears a wig, pretends to know martial arts, kisses Putin on the lips, and can't act its way out of a paper bag? That's an easy answer right there.
I'm going to give it... well, what do you think? Well, wait a minute. We can't give an answer. We're gonna
I
wait
can't
for the
say
live
that. I'll
chat.
give it away.
Yeah, we're going to wait for the live chat to answer that one. But I thank you so much for the support, Saps, and we're going to wait and see what everyone says. And then I'll add in what I think.
Spencer got it.
Oh man, you
That was
already
quick.
called it? That was quick, actually. Yeah, Spencer is
It's
on
the
the ball.
Bullshito master, Steven Seagal.
I'm telling you, man, I was in the state troopers for 20 years.
And then he never even had time in his life to be in the state troopers because he was an actor.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
He's a fraud all the way around.
I'm just such a cool guy, man. I'm getting in my zone. I'm gonna do the Bushido
Or whatever it is. But with that, it looks like everyone got that right immediately. Literally everyone. Richie was close, but everyone else got it right. But with that, we are on to the next video. Thank you once again for the support, Saps. And that riddle was easily answered by everyone. I actually, for a second, had Steven Seagal and also one other person that I will not mention in my mind, but it looks like everyone else was on the same page. Someone put in Conor McGregor. I don't think Conor McGregor acts. But with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support, Saps, and helping this thing to keep on running. Because without you, this wouldn't have been possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And Conor McGregor actually knows martial arts, and also he tried to put his hands on Putin one time, but he almost got messed up from it. So, anyways,
also
real quick, yeah.
You go ahead. You go ahead. I'll just save mine for a second.
I was about to move on to the poll.
Well, I'm about to move on to this real quick. A live chat. Mad Machine said the French started Vietnam. I would have to say no. Vietnam at one point was French Indochina, which included Laos and Cambodia as well. During the Second World War, French Indochina was invaded by the Japanese, and the Vietnamese, who were largely the ones who were responsible for the Laotians and the Cambodians getting their independence as well, they created this resistance movement against the Japanese specifically because they were committing atrocities far worse than the French ever even got close to doing in French Indochina, and they created the Viet Minh. The Viet Minh would fight the Chinese, the Japanese throughout the course of the Second World War until they were liberated by the British in 1945, and French Indochina came under a short, something like 10-month stint of British occupation. The British, in 10 months, almost put down the Viet Minh and crushed them, but the French started to protest and whine and complain that that was their job to do, that's their colony, they want it back, so then the British had to give it back to them, the French came in, and by that point, the Viet Minh was... Now, because they had been almost crushed by the British, they were fairly pissed off at any Western power or anyone at all that was trying to exert influence in Vietnam, and so then they wanted to create their own independent country, completely separate from any Western power, and that's why Vietnam came into existence, and then North Vietnam and South Vietnam came around because of some geopolitical meddling in between the Soviets, the Chinese, and the United States, and then that thing went on for about 20 or 30 years until... finally, the North Vietnamese won because the United States withdrew, and the incompetent South Vietnamese government just let the whole thing fall apart. But not necessarily. The French didn't really start the whole deal. It was really more so of the Japanese, but the French did own the colony, or I guess you could say the area. It's not really a colony, but it was more so of an area. But anyways, with that, I hope I addressed that fairly well. And let's get to that poll.
And also, Jonathan said, remind me on the Sammy the Bull story about Seagal pissed his pants because he's afraid of the mob. I think he was actually talking about Geraldo Rivera. I think he's the guy that the mob had put a hit out on, and it scared him so bad he turned white, like in the face on like live television because he was so scared. But no, I doubt it was Seagal. I don't think it was him. But anyways, real quick, Walter A. Lakota also said that tell the enforcer that the Indochina War was from 1949 to 1954.
And thank you for that clarification, Walter. That is true. Wait a minute. Hang on. I think the British may have occupied for longer. British occupation of Indochina. Let me pull that up real quick and make sure. War in Vietnam. 1945, 1946. So it was 6 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. So I actually got the length a little bit longer, but at the end of this, the whole thing would be handed back over to the French, and then the French would fight them from 19... Did he say 1949 to 1954 or 1949 to 1954?
Let me check. 1949 to 1954.
Okay, so that would line up, and then of course the thing that beat the French out of Vietnam was the decisive defeat at the Battle of Bien Phu, I mean, and then they got kicked out pretty much, and the Vietnamese kind of just set up their own thing and were hanging out down there. That also happened with Algeria as well, which is kind of weird because the French got their ass beat everywhere at the end of World War II. It's almost like they didn't have a real army standing anymore to defend any of this stuff, but thank you for clarifying that, Walter. And so with that, we are now on to the poll.
All right, and the poll says, which event would be / is more likely to spark World War III in your opinion? It looks like 53% said the Taiwan-China war, if that were to happen. 27% said Ukraine-Russia war, and 20% said unsure. And I would have to agree with the 53%. I think that if a Taiwan-China war broke out, that would be much more likely to spark World War III. I doubt that the West is willing to go to World War over Ukraine. That's just my guess. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that the Taiwan-China war will most likely produce World War III more so than the Ukraine-Russia war. The Ukraine-Russia war is tense, but it doesn't appear that it's going to boil over anymore like it did in the opening months of the war. China and Taiwan, however, I feel like that would almost boil over and explode immediately, just due to how strong of a stance the Chinese and the United States have against each other. Although I don't feel it will ever come to that point because the Chinese understand the implications, along with the United States, of what a true Pacific war over Taiwan would incur and what it would actually mean for everyone in the long run. And so with that, I hope that answers that poll fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Panama Floyd, who says, take one from the chat. I'm just trying to feed y'all.
Well, thank you so much for the support, and we will make sure to take one from the chat. And thank you so much for feeding us, because it literally, y'all are the only thing that keeps us alive and well is y'all's support. So I got to thank you so much once again for feeding us. And with that, let's get a live chat, and let's see what the live chat's got to throw at us tonight.
And the live chat question sponsored by Panama Floyd goes to Rob FER, who says, do you think all the stuff being sent to Ukraine will turn the tide?
I think most of what we've already sent has turned the tide. I feel like sending more equipment will still turn the tide even further. Western tanks are some of the, well, they are the best in the world, and I would definitely say that will turn the tide of the war. Aircraft will most certainly turn the tide of the war due to the Western aircraft having far more capability than anything that the Soviets or the Russian Federation have in their possession. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well. Thank you so much once again for sponsoring a live chat question. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $50 super chat from Andre Mogasan, who says, anything can spark World War III, honestly. We as people learn nothing and keep breeding hatred between us. It's long overdue, and we might as well have at it again for old time's sake. It's about time we wipe out more than half of us off the face of the earth. And he puts in the smiley little emoji little face at the end.
We ought to commit global genocide smiley face.
But facts, though, for real, facts.
It kind of is facts. I'll say this, though. The thing about we as people keep learning nothing and breeding hatred, everyone always tries to blame that on one thing, and usually people try and blame that on either religion or wealth. And I would say that it doesn't matter. You could remove religion and wealth completely and have a completely religionless or a monogamous, homogenous religious society, and everyone has the exact same amount of wealth. There will be differences found that will still end up getting people killed. It just will happen. That's what history has shown. Nothing will change that. People are just very, I guess you could say, I don't know how to describe it. People are very violent, contentious, maybe would be a better word. There will be quarrelsome is probably the best. There will be nothing that stops quarrels in between people ever. It'll just keep on going until the end of time. I wouldn't want to see a third world war happen because half of the population of the world getting killed in days, over the course of days, would not be good for anyone. The world would collapse. And while modern infrastructure may exist, a lot of the specialists and people who would have kept that infrastructure running would be dead at that point. The infrastructure would eventually collapse or completely fall apart, or it would never come back on. And people would be thrown back practically thousands of years in terms of technological development. And that stuff doesn't get recuperated overnight. Everyone's always optimistic about going, oh, you know, it'll just be about 100 years and we'll be back up to the speed we were at before a nuclear war. And people don't understand, once the stuff we have right now breaks down and falls apart, like the machinery originally used to create what we have, you have to start from scratch again, all the way from the bottom, and work your way back up. And I'm not a big fan at all of that, because that means that everyone from here forward, for the foreseeable future, through all time, will never have the ability to live the way we do, and they'll never have anything better than us. And so, with that, I thank you so much for the support, Andre. You are correct, but I hope that it never comes to the point of having a third world war, because the third world war would by far be the most devastating by any degree. And so, with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right. And we have a super chat from Hal Rose, who puts in a 50 and says, Enforcer, go Cossacks and pick a question from the live chat, please.
And thank you so much for the support, Hal. And also, go Cossacks! Yeah! And also, we will make sure to take one from the live chat, please. And of course,
all right,
please. And so, but before we do, thank you so much once again.
All right, and is it time for that live chat question?
No, I'm just kidding. Let's hear it.
Oh, well, anyways, let's see here. The live chat question is going to go to Chewbacca's secret love child, who says, "Did you get a chance to see that Putin threatened Boris Johnson?" And I did hear about that, but I'm not sure what to think.
I did hear about it, and apparently Johnson's response was, "It's a bit, wait a minute, hang on. You great supine protoplasmic invertebrate jellies. It's a bit rush, isn't it?" Hopefully I got that good, because I got to try and do that same great supine thing to get them right. So hopefully that sounds okay. But yes, I did hear about that. And I think that's a little bizarre, and I don't really know what to think of it, but we did hear about it. It was really weird. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for support, Hal Rose, and helping us to answer a live chat question. It means a lot to us that y'all help us to keep this thing rolling, and I got to thank y'all so much once again. And I know that people probably get tired of hearing us thank everyone and always read off everyone's super chat, but we have to. I don't want to be one of those people that's a butthole and y'all send in support and then just overlook it. Like, I want to thank y'all, every single one of y'all, for supporting us, no matter how big or small it is, because y'all are the only thing that keeps this channel running. And, you know, and if I can show a token of appreciation to y'all for helping me to keep doing what I'm doing by making sure to answer y'all's questions and definitely answer everyone's support, we'll always make sure to do that. And so thank you so much once again. I had to say that, because every time I say thank you so much once again, it sounds like a broken record. I'm like, man, you know, it's like I'd have to find some way to let y'all know that we really do appreciate the support. It's not everything on this channel, but it does mean a lot, because it's the only way we can keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
You don't want to scrutinize?
They don't want to scrutinize? No, they don't.
Great supine protoplasmic invertebrate jellies.
Yeah, I just need to hear it one more time. But anyways, up next, we have a $20 super chat from Corn Tech, who says, "We are happy to supply Legacy, our allies, if they send their Sukhoi and MiGs to Ukraine. What would we rather chance the Soviets to get a hold of, an F-16 or a Bradley?"
We would probably chance them getting a hold of a Bradley more so than an F-16. But you have to remember, there are F-16s across the entire world right now, so it's not really equivalent. The F-16 is far more expensive than a single Bradley, but at the same time, they're also very populous around the entirety of the world, so it's not really like they are special or top secret or anything. You can just send older variants of the F-16 into Ukraine, and if it gets shot down, the Russians are probably not going to learn anything from that aircraft that they probably couldn't have learned already. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Mr. Bit 10. Nice. Who says, LSA member from first week of the war. I watched Starsky's stream today where he spoke of Russia fielding 450,000 men for the next offensive and that cities will likely be recaptured. He stated, hard times are coming. And what are your thoughts about his statements?
And I thank you for the support, and that's a great question. I would have to be honest with you. A lot of people are getting divided in the Ukraine war community about this giant invasion force, and we've heard all kinds of numbers. We've heard numbers all the way up from 700,000 to 400,000 to just another 200,000. I just don't believe it's happening. We haven't seen any satellite footage to prove that these soldiers exist. We haven't seen anything to really prove that a new offensive will be beginning anywhere. And you have to remember that at the beginning of this war, for months on end, we saw satellite footage and pictures of the camps. We saw where the Russians were basing from. We had a pretty good idea of where they would be moving as soon as they crossed the border, and then they did it. And we're not seeing any of that right now with the brand new 450,000 or whatever number anyone's going with anymore offensive that's supposedly going to be beginning again. I'm not really a big fan or a believer of anything unless if I have hardcore proof in picture or video evidence to back it up, and I haven't seen any at this point to be able to back that up. That's not at all to discredit Starsky, though, because Starsky is an incredibly great guy. We've talked to him a whole bunch. He's also just a really cool person behind the scenes, and he usually, well, he almost always knows exactly what he's talking about, but on this one, I think I'd have to disagree because I just haven't seen enough proof on my end to actually say that would happen or not. But of course, I can be wrong. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, there's a whole bunch of other concerns I didn't cover, but I think the one right here about there's really no proof that they're even there is probably the best one. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And real quick, we do have another poll to go over real quick. As I say, quick, about 5 times over. And the question is, are wars primarily driven by which factor? And all wars have a little bit of every one of these factors in them, but which one primarily drives wars in your opinion? It looks like 38% said political and societal demands, 32% said corruption at top-level leadership, 22% said hatred and or bigotry of people, and 8% said unsure. And on this one, I've got to say, I think it's primarily, I'm going to say political and societal demands. But Enforcer, what do you think?
I'm going to have to be that person, Matthew, that goes, you didn't put in a 5th option. I would have to say it's usually economic or resource reasons. That's usually the reason why we see most wars get started. Because, for example, the United States starts most of its wars in the Middle East, and it's even become a joke now, mostly to ensure oil resources and an extra surplus of it if we need it. And we know that that's usually the reason why most wars are started. I guess I would say the second largest one is strategic purposes nowadays. That's what the war in Ukraine is being caused for, but it is largely the exception to the rule and not the norm. We can see even during the colonial era, many countries that would go and colonize areas of Africa or South America, depending on what era, or even countries in the East like Japan, they would go through and they would conquer territory and start wars for the concept of growing an economy or gaining some kind of resource, which would also tie into the economic situation. And that's the large reason of why I would say that's why wars start. Like, hell, even in World War II, the United States got dragged into the war for entirely resource reasons because we embargoed the Japanese, and the U.S. being the largest producer of oil at that time in the world, we pretty much killed the Japanese war machine right at the beginning of the embargo in 1940 because they were no longer able to get enough oil to run their entire military at the speed they were going at that point, and that's why they attacked Pearl Harbor and started to expand out further into the Pacific to try and find some kind of oil fields and other resources that would help them to continue on their war effort and their aims to create the greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. And also, even at that, like with the Germans usually are primarily talked about historically in the Second World War as wanting to just kill people, like the Poles, the Jews, the Slavs, and so on. But the entire reason that they went into the Second World War and invaded countries like Poland and the USSR was the idea of autarky, is that the German state should be entirely self-sufficient and should have enough abilities to produce the food and resources that they would need to not really have to rely on trade with any other country in the world. And that's why they expanded east, because there's a whole bunch of resources in that direction and agricultural land that could support a growing German nation and also allow more Lebensraum, or living room, for the German people. It was just unfortunate in the Germans' eyes that there were, fortunately for them, I guess, in their own way of thinking, inferior people out there that they could just sweep out of the way and then let Germans colonize the land and live out there. But once again, the entire purpose behind the Germans starting the Second World War was this idea of resources and trying to gain stuff for themselves in the future. And that's what I really think that all wars come down to, is economic or resource reasons. And then strategic reasons are usually a third concern. And so with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well. And I think Matthew's like passed out or something. I put him to sleep.
Waiting for the cue.
Well, y'all see that? Y'all see that? That's why I say and so with that, because that's the cue. We don't move on in the stream unless I say that. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and just like that, the cue was given. So our next super chat goes to BC Skyman, who puts in a $20 donation and says, "I would love to sponsor Packetang's last question, please. You guys are doing an awesome job." And luckily, and also thank you, BC Skyman. And luckily, I did find Packetang's question. He said, "Did anyone else see the clip on Polish news that had the David Attenborough voice and the leopard story? I wonder what came first, Polish news or the enforcer?"
And I thank you for the support. I didn't see it, but if they copied me, I would be highly flattered. I think that's hilarious if my voice impersonations are that good that someone would actually base something off of this channel. And if they did, and you're watching for some reason, send an email to me and let me know, because I would love to watch that, because I would find that really funny, and also I'd be highly flattered to think that someone copied the idea. Oh my God, Spencer!
Dang.
Spencer! Good God!
Wait a minute. He goes and walks his dog. Then he comes back and donates again? Spencer.
Man, he sits there, well, here's $100 and another 50. Let me go walk the dog. He comes back, sits down, another 100 would be appropriate, and just throws in another. Spencer, good Lord. But real quick, we'll get back to that one in a second, Spencer. Hang tight, though. We will get to it. But honestly, Packetang, if they did do that, I think that is the most flattering thing, and that shows that the voice impersonations are funny to someone out there, because apparently they were worth copying. But if they didn't, I'm sure my idea isn't an original idea, because honestly, I got the idea of doing a David Attenborough impression from another Ukraine war video that had a David Attenborough impression in it, and I was like, wow, that's so funny. I ought to do that voice on stream because I can do it. And then I did it, and then y'all liked it too. So they may have seen someone else and copied them, because I copied someone a little bit with that idea. I don't know, but still, that is really funny to hear. And maybe I'll find that video clip sometime around. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, BC Skyman, and sponsoring Packetang's question. And with that, we are now on to the next one. But thank you so much once again, BC Skyman and Packetang, for being channel old guards in the Lee Spring Army and always keeping the LSA flag flying. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And obviously, up next, we have that $100 super chat from Spencer, who says, "I got to hit you up yet again."
Thank you for the support, Spencer. He had to hit us up again, you know what I mean? And I got to thank you so much for that, Spencer, because, of course, support means a lot to us, and it helps this channel to keep on running. And without folks like y'all, this isn't possible. And I'm always saying that. And you know, it's because we really do count on y'all, and I cannot believe that you've sent in so much support to Sunday's fundraiser and also to tonight's stream as well, because we count on viewers like you to keep this thing running. No pressure. I never try and put pressure on anyone when I say this stuff, but you know, I want y'all to know who supports us how much y'all support really does mean. And so thank you so much once again, Spencer, for hitting us up again, because you're helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But of course, huge thanks to Spencer once again for being an absolute G, both on the Sunday Night Fundraiser and supporting this channel tonight.
Indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Marion Deemer, who says LSA rocks.
And also, I would have to agree with you, Marion. Marion Deemer?
Deemert.
Beamer. Why would I hear Deemer?
Not Beamer. Deemert.
He's a beamer, man. But anyways, thank you so much for the support, and thank you for telling us you guys rock, because I know that Matthew appreciates that greatly. I don't appreciate that one.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I'm about to cuss you out here in a minute and then say, call him out. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I'm just kidding with you and helping this channel to keep on running. You rock for helping us to keep this thing running, and if it wasn't for your support, we wouldn't be here tonight covering the news the way we always do. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again. But before we move on, Matthew, I've got to say, I'm just tired. Mustard. I'm tired of these fakers. Call them out. But with that, we are on.
The call them out guy's starting to really wear on my nerves.
Well, you know, it kind of wore on my nerves that I went out of my way to clear up a misunderstanding, and then apparently they still hold a grudge. That just. Honestly, that eats me alive. Well, not really eats me alive. That's making it way over dramatic. That just really irks me a lot, because I made sure to be the bigger person there and actually get to the bottom of it and try and fix that problem, just for me to get blown off continuously trying to, you know, reach out and, you know, make things better. That really aggravates the hell out of me. And
the enforcer got snubbed.
Yeah, I got snubbed. I got snubbed. I went out of my way to be nice to someone we had a misunderstanding with, and then I got snubbed, which really annoyed the hell out of me even further than before. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Jose Ruano, who puts in a $20 donation. And so, Slava Ukraine and free the Millennium Falcon. Freedom.
Well, we want to thank the Grant from Ukraine initiative for helping out with the Millennium Falcon. It is the quickest way to travel across 12 parsecs of the galaxy, and I would like to thank them once again.
But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I don't know how the Millennium Falcon falls into this whole thing, but it is still pretty neat. And the cockpit of that thing was actually based off of the B-29 Super Fortress, which is really cool. But thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this thing to keep on running.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Panama Floyd, who says, I saw Starsky's stream today. I think he's a bit over-concerned. If Russia mobilizes 200,000 more, how will Ukraine feed 180,000 who surrender? Evil grin, I'm cracking a joke, and agreed on the answer about resources.
And thank you for the support. And I would have to agree with you on that completely. I got to say this though, because one thing I want to make clear is that while I disagree with Starsky on this point, that doesn't mean that we're now at odds or anything. Starsky is still really cool, and usually after our Sunday night fundraisers when he's on, we all sit around for like 30 minutes to an hour and we just chit chat about anything. Like we actually invited him over to the United States and started telling him about places he should go and stuff, and he started telling us about places we should go in Ukraine. Like, he is a super cool guy, and I have nothing but respect and admiration for him. But on this one, I just see a lot of concerns that I think will make that not happen. Like, we don't see them. We haven't seen any satellite or picture evidence of them. There's really no way to supply them. There's no way to arm them. The Russians don't have enough of anything to get a force that size properly equipped. And so while they may make some initial opening offensive gains, they would eventually be quickly thwarted and thrown right back out of the country because they would just be so poorly equipped and prepared for something like that. On top of that, Russian logistics are built in a way to where they're not actually inside the military. Most of the Russian army's supplies comes from independent contractors that they pay out to do that work. And of course, contractors may just drop a contract. You know, they may be forced at gunpoint to try and fulfill a contract order, but you know, the guns that are going to be aimed at them, they're also feeding. So it's really going to be hard to aim the guns at the supply guy, well, the logisticians that are contracted out, because they're not even being fed enough to aim a gun at anyone. So I would say I would agree with that completely, and also funny joke too, Panama Floyd, about how they feed 180,000 of them, because that's probably how it would end up, is that most of them would either starve to death, or they'd surrender, or they would be so poorly equipped they would just be cannon fodder. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for support, Panama Floyd, and I hope that does address the comment fairly well.
And also, real quick, Spencer asked, I think somebody else asked as well, what's the P.O. Box number and all that stuff again?
If y'all want to find the P.O. Box, I'll show y'all where to find that real quick. It's actually on the channel, and I'll have to go check it here in the future and see if I get some kind of like anthrax spore in the mail or something. So, you know,
I gotta go buy my Tyvek suit first, and then
Yeah.
we'll be back.
So it's right here. If you go to the About page of the Enforcer YouTube channel, you'll actually find the P.O. Box right here. And some of y'all said this is an OPSEC concern. I kind of get where y'all are coming from with that, but we got a P.O. Box so that way people would not find our home address and send mail to our house, because, you know, we don't want people doing that, because, you know, what if our parents pull out an envelope and open it for us to tell us what's inside, and then they touch something and it's got like you know, like an anthrax thing on it or something, or fentanyl.
What if we open it and it gets us instead? It'll still be bad either way.
Well, yeah, but I'm running the channel, so I kind of take the responsibility of people trying to kill me. I don't want anyone killing our parents, you know, because that's even worse. But then we got to live with the fact that someone ended up collaterally killing our parents while we're still here. I wouldn't really like that idea.
And why would they be opening our mail?
Dude, you know,
There's so many holes in the story, Enforcer.
well, the reason.
I'm just joking.
Okay, well, the real truth, since Matthew's going to sit here, and I know you're joking, but the real truth is that people actually started sending mail to our house, which we're trying to stop that. So we made a P.O. Box instead, so that way we can go and get it there instead. That's the real reason. So with that, also Jose Ruano is really going all to Kaczynski on us, saying explosive mail. Hopefully not. But you know, you never know. But anyways, and Raj Kapoor said unboxing stream when? Probably wouldn't do an unboxing stream or an unboxing video, because because I would have to open up these packages and make sure they're safe beforehand before they even get to my house, because there may be an Apple AirTag in them, there may be some kind of a chemical agent in them. I don't really know, because there's people who out there who are still giving us death threats, and you know, this is probably going to be the quickest, most cowardly way to try and kill us. So I would probably open them all before a video even began. I wouldn't want to sit there and unbox them and then have something like explode in my face as like a puff of air, and then I've been poisoned, you know, and it's on video. I would not do that. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right.
Also, Dell Latica said, call him out.
He knows who we're talking about. But also, Spencer, thank you for leaving out the explosives and poison. We do appreciate it very much.
Hopefully,
all right.
Hopefully there isn't any. It's gonna be like the Smurf, you know, like the prankster Smurf. You open up the box, it blows up in your face. It's like all black with like charcoal or whatever the hell it was that those things were filled with. But anyways, with that, But
we actually will like be careful when we're opening the mail. Like we won't be goofing around when we open it. We were very safe when we opened the other one that showed up at the front door. So we're gonna be safe with these too, because that's really actually pretty scary when you go to open mail and you're not sure who it's from. And there's no return address on it.
That is true. And also, the Ukester said, how many enemies has the Enforcer made? Plenty. We've probably made like hundreds, if not thousands. So we've got to be careful. And then also on top of that, apparently Prigozhin watched this channel at some point because he was talking about banning YouTube in Russia because so many people were talking crap about him and Putin on here. So he must have watched this channel because we roast the hell out of him regularly. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Cindy Mitchell, who puts in a $15 donation and says, you know what I'm going to say, Matt, send it to the chat. And damn, son, where'd you find this?
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
And that was a really weak one on my part, but
it was a weak one on my part too. Like, we both had weak energy there. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for folks like you, this thing wouldn't run. And of course, that means a lot to us because you're actually helping us to eat. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And did he want a live chat answered?
Yes.
Let's get it done. Yeah.
All right. And let's see here. This question goes to, let's see, Amy Atkins, who says, what do you think it'll take to get the Allies to send fighter jets?
I think it will probably just take a little bit of time and a little bit more of the war dragging on, and then we'll eventually go, okay, we're giving fighter jets, or we'll say we've already given them and we just didn't tell anyone. It'll be one or the other. And so with that, I hope that answers that live chat fairly well. And thank you so much once again for sponsoring a live chat. You little goose. You silly little fellow. With that, thank you once again. I'm just kidding with you. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Landlubber, who says Enforcer in 2024. And I think that's actually impossible.
That is.
But Enforcer will be here in 2024, but I'm not sure if he'll be president.
I'll be alive, hopefully. And I won't be president, though, by 2024. I'll be president in 2040. Make sure to vote for me then. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Also, real quick, I'm making this has been an unofficial rule, but I'll tell you, if there is not a return address, a valid return address on any packages that are sent to us at the PO box, I'm probably not even going to open them, because that is a little scary for us, because we don't really know who sent it and from where. And also another thing, we will not probably be taking any kind of consumables. Like I've seen someone say they're going to be sending us some broccoli, and I know what that is. We're not going to be taking that. I believe that is illegal here in the state of Alabama.
Yes.
And also, we will not be taking anything that we have to eat or drink, because I don't know if that would have been poisoned or not. So, just make sure it's like something solid that we cannot eat or drink, and it's just like a thing. Because otherwise, we'll, out of caution, make sure not to eat or drink it, because we wouldn't want to potentially get poisoned by something. And
we'll be running it through the X-ray machine too. We'll be putting it through the metal detector, and we'll also be decontaminating it as well. Not really, but hopefully, maybe.
That is true. And Spencer said, "I don't trust people who don't drink. I drink water. I mean, like, you can trust
we drink
me.
water.
We drink water. I also like milk. I think milk is really good.
Also, that Tropicana tropical drink that has peach and strawberry in it's pretty good too.
Yeah. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Margaret Hemsley, who says, we'll be at work tomorrow, so we'll miss you guys. Maybe you can buy some matchsticks to keep your eyes open with this. Choose a live stream question, please.
And thank you so much.
And also thank you. Maybe we will get some matchsticks sometime soon. I hadn't thought about that.
And thank you so much for the support, and also helping us to buy those matchsticks. It means a lot to us, because it gets tough keeping these streams running, especially with the busy schedule. I'm not going to go through that, though. I go through that like nightly. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope we did address that fairly well. And in the meantime, Matthew, go get us some matchsticks now. But with that, do we need to answer a live chat question here?
And yes, we do. So the live chat question will be going to, this time, it'll be going to, let's see, Susan Lowell, who says, does the average Russian now living in Crimea know that the Bradleys are coming to Ukraine?
I don't think he does, but I'm sure they'll find out soon when the Russians get plastered by a Bradley out there in the Bakhmut area. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. I thank you so much once again for sponsoring a live chat question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Junebug72, who says, hello, you too, and please take a live chat question. Have a good evening. I got a case of war news anxiety, so taking it in mire incrementally. Have a wonderful evening. Slava Ukraine. And also, thank you.
And thank you so much for the support, and also Slava Ukraine. And I would have to tell you, war is pretty tough to deal with, and I'm going to tell you, it is very straining sometimes on me to watch some footage now, because I've seen it so much, it's just gotten very tiresome to look at. So I completely understand, and I hope you do take enough of a break that you can handle coming back, because it is, of course, a little strenuous and tiresome to everyone. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope you've been enjoying your off time, and I hope you've been enjoying your time back here on stream as well, and I hope we've made it, I guess you could say, palatable. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Rocco, World Domination, who says, have a taco on me. Wait a minute. Hold on. I was doing the wrong thing. Igor. And Slava Ukraine.
Matthew, you'd never do that again now. You never mixed the yeehaw with the Igor. That was wrong.
Igor!
And Slovakini. But thank you so much, Rocco World Domination, for the support. And we will have a taco on you, my good friend. My friend. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And also, did y'all know that the Russians actually originate from the Kievan Rus? Did you? Did you not? I bet you did. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again, Rocco World Domination.
And the next one goes to BC Skyman, who puts in a 10, and also 21 Grams, who puts in a 10 as well, and they don't leave comments. But thank you very much to BC and 21 Grams for the support, and we appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for the support. If it wasn't for a viewer like you supporting this channel, this thing wouldn't be possible. You help us to keep those lights, help us to keep this thing rolling. And also help me to continue putting out this hashed speech. I need to come up with a new one. But with that, thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one. I'm going to try and make a conscious effort from now on to try and make that speech a little bit different. I don't know how, though, but we're going to try, because it really drives me crazy that I say almost the same thing to everyone. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Joe Little, who puts in a $10 donation and says a lot of gun YouTube channels are getting channel strikes. Oh.
Channel strikes? Who? Well, we gotta take a tour around YouTube.
I had a feeling that YouTube's going to start trying to phase out the gun content, which is a huge mistake.
Let's see here.
Oh, speaking of which, I just saw it on the front page. Did you see that Mr. Beast drama?
What Mr. Beast drama?
About him paying for like 1,000 people's like LASIK surgery or something, and now he's getting backlash for it.
Really?
Yeah, he's getting backlash for it. It's somewhat political. I can't go into it, but he's getting backlash.
For paying for eye surgery?
Yeah, seriously.
Well, I don't know what the details are, but on the surface, that sounds silly.
It's insane.
Well, let's see here. It doesn't look like Hitchcock 45 has been hit. So let's see about Kentucky Ballistics. Let's see if he's been hit.
What is that?
I mean, like, rather than getting hit with the 50 caliber that blew up on him, let's see if he's been copyright strike. I feel sorry for him. That video was tough to watch, and I can't believe they actually uploaded some of it. Because, man, good lord, imagine having a 50 caliber shell blow up pretty much right under your chin. That must have been one hell of a thing to go through. But also, it looks like he just had another one explode 13 days ago. Man, this guy, this guy is like the bomb squad of guns. Like, everything he has blows up.
He's dedicated to keep going after all this.
But it doesn't look like anyone's getting copyright strike. He got the whole 50 cal thing a year ago? That was that long ago? It doesn't feel like that long ago. And also, these channels are blowing up, by the way, because he put this up 1 year ago. He got 2 million subs back then. He's at 3.16 now. And Hitchcock 45 is at like 7 or 8 million. I don't think they'll be getting rid of the gun people entirely. I think they'll try and tone them down a lot, because the gun people really make a lot of money for YouTube on AdSense and everything, and have a lot of traffic here. There's a lot of gun people get on YouTube and watch stuff. So I don't think they'll be doing that, but I could be wrong, because some other companies out there on the internet have made decisions to wipe out a large part of their base of, I guess you could say, users entirely for one reason or another, although it didn't really make sense from a business sense. But still, that is fairly interesting here. And if y'all can share with us any channels that have been hit by that, we may have to start changing some plans in the background and doing things to mitigate any kind of risk. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Marcus Burtonshaw, who says, congratulations to the Enforcer Matt, and all of the LSA on the fundraising success. Absolutely incredible, and Slava Ukraine. And thank you, Marcus, very much for the kind words. And a big thanks to the LSA that so generously donates every single Sunday. And it's just really crazy to think that we're up to $750,000. That's an insane amount of money. We're going to get to $1 million.
Oh, we will. We will in time. I'm sure. I have no doubt at all. We definitely will get there. And I got to thank you so much for supporting this channel and helping us to get to those Sunday night fundraisers, because it's really crazy to think we have raised $751,000 in support of Ukraine on this channel. That is unbelievable. And I'm completely blown away that we've been able to do that. And so I got to thank you so much for supporting us so that way we can keep running these fundraisers, because you know, I'm trying to figure out how to word this because my brain has already started to shut off. It does this normally now because it just is what it is, I guess, now with how busy everything is. But without y'all's support in helping to run this channel, we can't get to the Sunday fundraisers. Like, you know, if everyone dropped the support, their support in like a super chat or anything like that, we wouldn't be able to last for long. We could probably run for maybe a month or a month and a half, and then that would be it. You know, we would have to just close up and try and find something else to do to keep surviving. And so y'all help us directly through y'all support to the channel and helping this team to keep on running each and every day and help us to get to those Sunday night fundraisers, because without y'all support, it's not possible for us to make it long. So I got to thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you for congratulating us. I really think all the credit goes to the Elite Spring Army instead, because while the community exists here on the Enforcer channel and we run the fundraisers, without the Elite Spring Army, that wouldn't mean anything. And so it's really all down to the viewers as far as the success of that fundraiser went. And I got to tell y'all deserve a round of applause for that. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Raj Kapoor, who says, on Sunday, I saw a cake display near UB City, a shopping area in Bengaluru. They made me a cake of the Motherland Monument to show solidarity with Ukraine, and it made my day.
And thank you so much for the support. And let's see, Bengaluru. Oh, we've been here before, I think. Man, that's a nice building.
We've been there?
No, I don't. I think we've been here on Google like Street View and stuff.
I was about to say, there's no way we've been there. We've never been to India.
But man, it looks kind of nice.
That is really nice, actually.
Yeah, that's actually not bad at all. That's really nice. Also, look, they have a cathedral.
Oh.
Wow. That actually looks like the Cologne Cathedral a little. But I gotta thank you so much for the support. Also really cool to hear that you're from Bengaluru, India. And also, I hope you enjoy that cake. It sounds like a pretty nice one, and I also like what's on it. The statue, I believe, in Kyiv. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Scott Kemp, who puts in a $10 donation and says, thanks for all your hard work. It's a great service to freedom.
And thank you so much for your support, because it helps us to continue on our reporting, it helps us continue on our fundraisers, and it helps us to continue on doing what we do in the name of helping Ukraine and also the Western world. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one. Also, Matthew, I love it whenever we get bots that sit there and say, hey, these people are lizard guys. They've been hired by the CIA to say this, because we have to, we read off everyone's super chat because y'all are the only thing supporting us. So that's why we thank y'all so much, because without y'all support, we wouldn't keep this thing running. It always gives me a good laugh whenever bots say something like that, because it's like, without the viewers, we couldn't be here, because there is no CIA in the background. It's just us. That's what a CIA operative would say, though. But with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Taras Kulik, who says, my relatives in Ternopil, Ukraine, gather to watch your stream live if the electricity is on. One of them translates for the rest, and they are very grateful to the LSA and say, Diakoyu.
And thank you so much for the support. And also pretty cool to hear that they're watching from all the way in Ternopil, just outside of Lviv a little bit. It's actually on a little river. Is that a dam or just a bridge? Because I'm like, that's weird. It's just this giant thing. Let's take a look. Oh, they have a castle? It's more like a house. And they got the I love Ternopil sign. They have these signs in every town. They have like I love Bakhmut, I love Severodonetsk. They have them everywhere. But it looks like a really nice little place, this castle. Man, nice.
I'm just sitting here like trying to determine whether or not this is a bot or not. Somebody said definitely a black op. I've never seen this person before, so I don't know if they're joking or not.
I don't. You know, like we'll give them a chance. we'll give him a chance, but that's usually the start of something like, he's a CIA operative, he's a lizard man. But
how could we be CIA operatives? I mean, us too. I mean, come on.
Did Matthew nervously sweating over there, like adjusting his collar? Come on, we couldn't be CIA. Man, the CIA is about to show up to our door. Stop saying you're CIA. Stop it. We're not CIA. We're not CIA. You know, it'd be cool if we were, but we're not.
Not really, but
well, I mean, yeah, probably not, but still. Oh wait, I think you said it's a joke. It's a prank, bro. It's a prank. Chill, it's a prank. But
just making sure, because usually, like when people show up and they're like never been on the channel, and something starts like that, the next thing will be, "F the channel. I can't stand you guys," and it'll start going south.
Yeah, I'm sorry, groovy little motorbike. Whenever we do hear that stuff, we're kind of a little overzealous a little bit with that nowadays, because 99.9% of the time when someone says that, they go bat insane right after that comment or something similar to it. So I'm sorry. He said it's a prank, bro. It's a prank. So we're backing off, man. And also, someone said, not according to
the liberal media, they're lying to you. They want you to live in a paradigm. They want you to live out in nature.
But anyways, with that, I'm just kidding with you. Thank you so much once again, though, for the funny joke. And with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. And it's cool to hear that your family is watching Out Turner Pill. We always hear about a few Ukrainians here and there that watch this channel. And it means a lot to me, because this originally did start off to let Ukrainians know what was going on. And it's great to know that there are Ukrainians that are watching. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have another one. Can you believe this? Another one from Spencer, who puts in a $20 donation.
Oh my
People
Lord.
are starting to get suspicious. Keith Nicholas said, "Is Spencer your handler?" And they're on to us.
Oh no, we gotta pack up, Matthew. We gotta move. But
all right.
but let's hear what we got. What we got.
Spencer says this time, "One more gift for you guys, and take a break and enjoy your youth."
And thank you so much for the support, Spencer. That's actually quite kind of you. You're offering us paid leave. But sadly, I'm a bit like a manic this way, because with me and Matthew, well, really with my whole family, we're like a light switch. We're either on or off on something. We're either going all the way or we're not going at all. So it's really weird, because I feel like at this point, with college going on in the background, with as much as it is, and with this going on, I feel like over the past 3 weeks, and I think I'm on the 4th one, that I'm slowly starting to burn myself out. But I cannot stop either one, because I feel like if I roll back streams, people will feel like I'm slacking off on this, and I can't slack off on college work because there's syllabuses and there's assignments that are due, and I can't just throw those off because I can't fail in the last semester of college that I'm in. And so, it's nice, though, to think that we could take a break, but just due to how Matthew and me are, we probably won't, and I probably won't take a break until I literally just collapse from exhaustion. So with that, I thank you so much for the offer, though. That is really nice of you. And if I could take a break right now and do anything I wanted, I would probably end up trying to go shotgun shooting here in Alabama and go shoot clays, because I really like doing that. It's really fun, especially when you have a friend. Going alone's kind of sad, I feel really lonely, but when you go with a friend, shotgun shooting is the funnest thing ever. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Spencer. I hope that answers the comment fairly well. And also, Spencer said, "I get it." I know, Spencer. It's not. It doesn't sound that fun, like to sit there and say I got to work until I collapse, but it is who I am. I have that Victorian era factory worker mindset, and that's kind of to my detriment. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope I addressed that fairly well. We're on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from the Burn Phone, who puts in. I already said $5. I don't know why I'm saying that again. He says, "Enforcer Matt, what's so wrong with a little CIA ops? Slava Ukraine." Well, thank you for the support. I don't know what to say to that, but Enforcer, what say you?
I'm gonna say that being a CIA operative, I wouldn't want to be a CIA operative because I wouldn't want to be the guy injecting people with syphilis here in Alabama or shooting shells filled with LSD at a small French town just to see what happens.
Who wants that?
I'm not really a big fan of that kind of stuff. I guess there's got to really though when you think about it, I was about to say there's got to be people out there in the world who do it. Who in the world had to inject the people in Tuskegee with syphilis though? Like what relevance did that have to anything?
That was sick.
You know,
like bad.
Yeah, and you know, and then some people are gonna be like, oh come on, man, but like in reality, why? That didn't even show anything. It didn't even prove anything. It's not like they were trying to learn anything about syphilis. Everything was already known about syphilis. That was just doing it for the hell of it, you know. And I gotta say, not really a big fan of that kind of stuff. That's why I wouldn't be a big fan of doing that. The CIA, though, is an organization that does have to exist for other reasons, but I'm not really a big fan of some of the things that they've done that have been proven, especially what they've done here in Alabama to some folks. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for support, but I get the joke.
All right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Avari Mandubratis, who says, Andrew, perhaps you should end the streams from 11:30 p.m. to 12 a.m. Central so you can get some sleep. Please give this to the Morse code readers. And that's a first. Avari has just started a brand new trend.
And I was about to say, I was like, that is crazy. I've never heard that before. And I would say that's a good idea. 11:30 to 12. However, if I did that, we wouldn't be able to get to all the super chats and all of the live chats. And I have an obligation. I'd never want to cut any of y'all off and just be like, well, you know, I've gotten tired. I'm gonna, you know, just throw y'all support to the wind because y'all's, you know, because and I never try and say it like this way, but y'all's support is serious, not just to me, but it's serious in the implication to y'all. Like, for example, like with Spencer's $100 super chat or your $10 super chat, y'all had to work at a job to make that money. And y'all have decided that this channel is so worthwhile that y'all would spend y'all's hard-earned money to support us and keep this thing running. And I would never want to sit there and, because, you know, I got tired and go and throw y'all's hard-earned work and then y'all support into the wind because I got tired. You know, like I feel like I would be screwing y'all over. And so that's why we don't that's why we don't make the streams short and they're really long, because I always want to make sure that we thank everyone who has been able to make these streams possible every single time y'all throw in support. That's even why back in the day when streams would get cut off from internet connection issues and things like that, we would, although it'd be exhausting, we would get up the next day and we would run a midday stream to answer all of those super chats, because we don't want anyone to ever get left out and just, you know, get screwed over. And that's really why these things are so long. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Avari. That is a good idea, but that is the reason why we don't, because I have a lot of respect and a lot of care for y'all, and I want to make sure to pay as much respect to y'all as I possibly can. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And also, he did want the Morse code readers to be read off. So tonight we have Cliff Simonson, JP's RCs, Mark Hodges, Cife, and Rumpelstiltskin. They said today's Morse code dispatch is: get a great rate if you go online, go to the Ukraine and lose some guys. What the hell was that one enforced?
How'd you like that? How'd you like it?
Oh, that's the best one yet.
Yeah, I was really struggling to come up with that one tonight. And so I said, I hope y'all liked it though. I mean, like I think that is the best one I've come up with. Get a great rate if you go online, go to the Ukraine and lose some guys. I know it's not the Ukraine, it's Ukraine, but that's the only way it would work in the like slogan. So with that, I thank y'all. Y'all did get it correct, and I thank y'all for deciphering that Morse code message, and I hope y'all got a hell of a laugh out of that one, because it took me a lot of effort to come up with it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank y'all once again for deciphering the Morse code message, and I really do hope y'all got a good laugh out of it.
Yeah, that was a good one, I gotta say. But up next, we have a $10 super chat from Michael Cabrera, who says, here's something for the pork ring and lemonade fund. Keep doing that thing you do.
And thank you for the support. I think I'll keep doing the thing we're doing. I don't know which one that is. Is it the voices, the news? Like, I don't know. But I do thank you for it, and we will make sure to keep everything running, I suppose. And also, thank you for the lemons and the pork rings. I
think pork rind, I think you meant to say.
The pork rings. I marry someone in the future, Matthew, and I like kneel down and I open up like the little wedding ring box thing, and it's got like a pork ring in it. It's made out of pork instead of gold or something. Would you marry me? Yes. And it's like just perfectly cooked pork.
What?
But wait a minute, don't they say I do?
Yeah, but I mean, why do you say it in like such a burly voice like that?
I don't know, man.
You say, "Will you marry me?" I do.
I do. Wait, Matthew, wait, hang on. I got a better one. Will you marry me? Yeah, I will. We are on to the next one. And wait, hang on, real quick though, Matthew. What do you expect me to do? I can't do a girly voice. Like, how in the world am I supposed to do that? I've never done one on stream. I can't do one. So how in the world was I supposed to make it not sound burly?
You could sound like that, the big bad wolf off the Looney Tunes cartoons, like trying to imitate the grandma. Oh, what big teeth you have.
What the hell? No, I would rather do the burly one over there. With that, we're on to the next one. But thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Mr. Bit10 once again, who says, I agree with your assessment on Starsky's stream. No warnings from Western Intel. Moreover, not enough viable equipment to field so many soldiers. I wonder if this is a PSYOPs campaign against Russia.
I'm wondering, and thank you so much for the support. And I'm gonna stick to my guns on that one. Of course, whenever, and I'm gonna say this, I'm not always right. And every time I say something, I always run the risk of being wrong. And on this one, that is the exact same as before. And I could be entirely wrong, and Starsky could be entirely right on this. But in my intuition, based off of everything we've seen, everything we know, and everything we've collected, I just feel like it's not possible. And of course, I'll be proven wrong or right in the future. We'll just see. Time will tell. But I feel like nothing is going to come out of it. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that addresses that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And I got to say on this one, I honestly don't know for a fact, but I would have to put some stock in Starsky's opinion because I'm not sure why he'd want to paint that image if it wasn't the case. Because if it was a PSYOPs campaign and Starsky's trying to make the Russians believe something that isn't the case, what would be the benefit of that? Because I just don't get it.
I don't really know. I mean, like, it could just be that Starsky does believe that there will be some kind of a new offensive begun with a whole new bunch of guys, but I just, just going off of what we've seen, because, like Starsky, and of course, there's differing opinions in every single circle, every single community and profession there ever is. I'm gonna have to stick with my guns in this one. I just don't think it will happen. And of course, at the end of the day, I can't be proven wrong, but they don't have the supplies, they don't have the trained manpower, they don't have any way to feed them. And all those things are going against that. And we don't even have any picture or video proof of new military bases being set up near the Ukrainian border that show that they're either going to be preparing for an offensive or they're in Ukraine and they're going to be conducting an offensive from occupied territory right now. So all those things are kind of strikes against it to me. And that's why I would rule it out. It's not to say it's impossible for it to happen. I'm just saying I think it's highly unlikely. And we'll only see as time goes by, because every time anything comes up, like with May 9th, everyone was saying the Russians will declare a full-on war then, and they'll mobilize everyone and they'll stomp the Ukrainians. And I said it's probably not going to happen. Of course, I was running the same risk then of being wrong as I am now. Fortunately, I was right back then. I could be wrong this time. I never really know. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a super chat from Dupper Bob, who puts in a 5 and says Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraini. And also, thank you for the support, Dupper Bob. You were the first super chat to come in on stream tonight. I remember that. And so, thank you so much once again for always supporting this channel, always helping us to keep on running, and also for your membership to the Lee Spring Army. And so, Slava Ukraini. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Technician Underground. He puts in a 5 and says money for Enforcer Snacks with an X.
And thank you so much for the support. I would say that I would create a gaming channel called the Snack Team, the Snack Brigade, but call them out. So with that, I thank you so much for the support. We will make sure to get some snacks. And if y'all want to know, my favorite snack is the Italian-style pinwheels. They're very expensive, though, but the Italian-style pinwheels from Publix. I love those. They're so good, man. Like with a little pepper in them in there. Oh, man, it's just way too good. But with that, thank you so much once again. Those snacks only come around like once every 2 weeks or once a week. So it's not like a normal thing, but that will make sure to get a pack of them, I think. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this little channel to keep on rolling.
All right. And let's see here. I'll have to keep an eye on that one. But up next, we have a $5 super chat from White Lightning 777, who says, "Aren't there plenty of orc POWs that would volunteer to maintain runways for F-16s? They love working for that cheap vodka."
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think you can use prisoners of war for any kind of labor, according to the rules.
Well,
of
I mean,
war,
they're
but-
getting paid for vodka. I mean,
Yeah, but yeah, you
I mean,
could.
they're getting paid.
I don't know. It's kind of like gray area, but you maybe. Maybe. So that. Thank you so much for the support, White Lightning 777, and I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we were on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right. And Bobby Karalfa will never be doing that one chip challenge. I've seen that go horribly wrong on some videos. But anyways, up next we have a $5 super chat from Thomas Kruger, who says, "Enforcer, what have you heard about North Korea sending weapons to Russia?"
I've heard that they're sending some small arms. It's been pretty much confirmed now that they are doing that. But it's small arms stuff, mortar rounds, rifles, things like that. It's not big stuff. It's just small things, and it's not really a lot of it from what we've heard. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to Suze K. Sullivan, who puts in a 5 and says, "Slava Ukraine."
And Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from HerpDerp NV, who says, if you play Steam games, there's one called Drug Dealer Simulator that lets you run a trap house, and a manager version with the trap admin work.
What the hell? Well, I thank you for the support and letting us know about that. I don't know if I'm into those kinds of games, but I will take a look at it and see. Also, real quick, Taylor McDowell, if you could clarify what that means, I may answer that. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Andre Mogasan, who says, "It's worth also noting that the whole thing is getting harder to sell in Russia without full mobilization and switching to a war economy."
And I would agree with that entirely. And I think that they're already almost in a war economy, and they still can't really run the thing. And on top of that, even if they do convert into a war economy, they don't have the resources to make it actually beneficial, because if they wanted to start producing new T-72s, they don't have the sites or the ability to produce those sites anywhere in Russia, and they don't have the resources to do it either. So with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does answer that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And also,
Is that
what the person put in?
Yeah, that's what he put in.
Oh, so it's not anything bad?
No, it's literally just the song. Yeah, it's literally that same thing. So we're on to the next one.
So up next, we have a $5 super chat from Jonathan Tubbs, who says, "Does Putin own Persian cats?"
I don't know if he does or doesn't. I'll have to declare ignorance on that one because I'm not really sure. And also, is that a live chat?
No, it's a super chat.
Oh, and I don't really know if he does, so I'm going to have to declare ignorance on that one, but I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a super chat from Mr. Bitten once again, who puts in a 5 and says, "Almost a year for this war, where it started, then watching camera feeds to then great channels like this. War coverage will never be the same. Thanks."
And thank you so much for the support. And I would have to agree with you. War coverage will never be the same after this war. It'll be like this until a new form overtakes it. And I would have to certainly agree with you that it's really crazy to think that people like you have eventually found this channel, and y'all started off watching the live feed of cameras, security cameras around all over Ukraine, and y'all eventually found us. We were doing this since the first hour, and so it's actually really cool to hear that people just eventually found us through the course of the war. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our last super chat for now goes to Philip Fixes, who puts in a $5 donation and says, "Before the war, Americans could care less about Europe's gas station. A faceless enemy is the tool of dictatorships. Slava Ukraine, the LSA, and enforcers."
And thank you so much for the support. And I would completely agree with that. And also, Slava Ukraini, long live the Spring Army, and long live the enforcer and enforcerman. And so with that, Thank you to Grain from Ukraine. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we're going to answer live chat questions until 1:30 a.m. Eastern Time or 12:30 a.m. Central Time. And so with that, let's get on to the first one.
The first one goes to Smoky Pete, who says, Enforcer, when will Ukraine cut the water supply to Crimea?
I think they already have, again. But I can't really be all too sure on that one. So I'm going to have to declare ignorance, but I think the water supply is still cut to Ukraine. Oh, I mean Crimea. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, let's see, up next we have a question from Beef Taco, who says, hey, Matt, any idea how the Spetsnaz are making out? Oh, and Beef Taco, they are definitely making out. That didn't sound right.
Wrong.
But
that sounded so
yeah, that
wrong.
sounded kind of wrong. That was supposed to be sarcastic, but it came out kind of weird.
Well, they're not. Oh, well, can you reread that one again real quick?
How the Spetsnaz making out?
Oh, they're almost dead. Well, they are dead, pretty much. So with that, I hope that answers that, and also to answer Taylor McDowell, because now they brought up the question. So what happened was, and I'll tell you, and take it for what you will. There was a accidental beef that was caused in between that channel and this one. We went out of our way to have that cleared up with them. We reached out to them and told them over email, I think this whole thing's a misunderstanding because it appears that people are trying to pit us against each other. We found out some of them are lying. And so then he said, oh, well, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And then I tried to get him into a Discord call to try and further clarify and clear up the situation and try and make amends for something that was obviously a misunderstanding on both ends. And so then he blew me off for an entire 2 weeks of me reaching out and trying to get in a Discord call and clear the whole thing up. And then finally I sat there and said, all right, well, I guess it was a nice talk, and just put a thumbs up on a message. And I have not gotten a response for 2 whole weeks. So I went out of my way to try and clear up a misunderstanding. I tried to be the bigger person because I thought it would only be right considering what we had found out here on this channel, thanks to the mods doing a lot of investigative work. And then I get snubbed, which was really rude and really just low. I mean, for me to have gone out of my way and tried to have been exceptionally nice, especially when it was clearly understood by everyone at that point, it was a misunderstanding, that was just rude. So
it really irritated me too, because Andrew really did go out of his way to go over there and make amends, and for that to happen, that was really crappy in my opinion.
Yeah, so that's what happened. That's the whole story from our end. And that's why we're legit throwing shade now, because I don't know why in the world someone would sit there, if they're going to be that petty, and sit there and act like the whole thing's being cleared up. And
also the thing you were trying to reach out about was literally about raising money for Ukraine.
Yeah,
that was the worst possible thing you could snub somebody over.
Yeah, and we'll tell y'all more about this in the future after it happens, but we actually had a plan to involve him in something really, really big in the future. Not as like an apology to clear that up, but as a person who covers the Ukraine war doing a similar thing. That's what we were wanting to do, and then I get snubbed and blown off for trying to do that. That didn't happen with anyone else. Like, we've reached out to everyone we possibly could have on YouTube, and everyone has given us a response, and everyone is actually on board with what we're doing, and they're going to be doing it with us, except for that one guy, and that was really just a really petty thing. It really aggravates the hell out of me, because everyone on YouTube is cool, but this one person, and they're going out of their way to not be a nice person. Even after we found out everything was a mistake, we tried to clear it up with them. They're still going to go at it. And now it's just this passive aggressive way of just ignoring us and blowing us off, even though we're trying to reach out to them. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a question from, let's see here, Ryan Hubbard, who says, why aren't European nations that still have MiGs not donating to Ukraine? We can replace them with the F-16 BLK DS easily.
That is a good question. The reason why they're probably using AKs is because they have an incredibly large stockpile of them. They're a gun that's fairly easy to use. And so that's probably the reason why. And they also have a lot of ammo for it. So while we could easily replace it for the Ukrainians, logistically, it's just much easier to use the AK. So with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. Also, for our British viewers, I'm sure they call it a Kalashnikov, which is really what it is, but everyone in America calls it an AK, although there's a million different AKs. There's the AK-47, which really didn't exist. Then there's the AKM. Isn't that weird, Matthew? Like, the AK-47 was the least produced variant of the AK, yet everyone in America calls an AK-style rifle an AK-47.
Yeah, it's crazy what we pick up on over here in the USA.
Yeah, you know, like the most produced variant of the AK platform was the AKM. And then the AK-74 is, I believe, the second most produced. And then we have all of the other ones like the AK-105, the AK-104, the AK-103, the AK-102, the AK-101, the AK-12. You know, you have all of those, but the two biggest ones are the AKM and the AK-74. The AK-47 hardly existed at all. And there were so many problems with the original AK-47, kind of like the original M16, that it got modified a little bit, and then it came back as the AKM. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a question from Silver Earth, who says, Enforcer, President Xi is going to Russia for the anniversary of the start of the SMO. What do you think Putin and Xi have planned?
Oh, probably not much. The Chinese were kind of like looking like they were on board with Russia at the Olympics that happened earlier in 2022. But they kind of jumped ship as soon as the Russians went to war with Ukraine, and they now have taken an official stance that while they're somewhat neutral to the whole situation, they still make statements where they're not really a fan of Russia's war and saying that it should end soon and that they should probably just end it now. And they say that every once in a while. It's very light, though. You don't see it a lot. But the official Chinese stance is somewhat neutral or negative of the war, and so we might see that there really is nothing planned. It's just a coincidence that they're both there. Kind of like Trudeau and Xi being at that one meeting, and then Xi just completely lambasted and treated Trudeau poorly, and then even roasted him in earshot, mic shot of a camera, which was a huge diplomatic insult. But anyways, with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Mad Machine, who says, Matt, there is some talk about the orcs having only about 3 months left before running out of ordnance, and can you confirm that or give your best estimate?
We can confirm that with 152mm guns. They are running out of ammo on those. AKs, we really can't even tell because there are millions of, well, even tens of millions of rounds or hundreds of millions to account for there. So we really can't say anything about small arms ammo, but we can say something about the large caliber rounds, and that's that they are, based off of our numbers and estimates, running out of those, but they have opened up factories that are producing them. So they may just be breaking even at the end of the day now, but they have much smaller stockpiles in case they wanted to conduct an offensive than they had at the beginning of the war to work off of. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And with that, that is the last question of the night. I thank you all so much once again for watching. If y'all did enjoy both the news and the question segment, please make sure to subscribe. Also like and comment as well, because this stream runs every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And so if you subscribe and hit that bell button, you will not miss a single day of the Ukraine war. We will be covering it every single day. And even after we take our day off on Monday, like today, we cover Monday and today in the same stream. So we have continuous Ukraine war coverage on this channel. I thank you all so much once again. Good night, take care, good luck, and Slava Ukraini.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Усміхнеться доля. Гинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького